Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
Tow truck driver. That's a hard one. That's the story. Oh yeah, I don't know.
Who
about
hasn't got into it with a tow truck?
I tried to tell you guys it was a 2-player draft, and you didn't want to believe me.
I don't believe anything you say.
Think about if Paul was eligible for the draft, all the red flags about confrontations that he's had.
Good luck finding a confrontation in my past.
Youth sports, Toys R Us, all that stuff.
They find that spot on Route 9.
Cops haven't spoken.
Yeah.
Cops haven't spoken.
Do you know what
to
he
me
did
since I was,
here?
like in high
Public
school.
defecation.
And on a serious note,
Paul shows they're talking about they brought this
This ought to be good.
direwolf back from the DNA of a tooth. I don't like that. You see what happened in Jurassic Park? It's like it's a movie. Your shows.
I mean, direwolves are badass though.
You screw around too much, and all of a sudden you're bringing T-Rexes back. I don't know. Have you seen Jurassic Park?
It wasn't real.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
Hey, have you ever wondered what it's like to work at Gillette Stadium? Well, you can find out. If you're in the area, come on down today until 6:30. They're having a big job fair. Go in through the E1 entrance of Gillette Stadium, and you could get hired on the spot. So that's pretty cool. But if you're not in the area and you're still wondering what it's like to work at Gillette Stadium, you can go to thecraftgroup.com/careers and apply today. All right, I had to get
That's
that
good.
out of my
Come
system.
work with us,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
What entrance was that?
E1
Until what time?
until 6:30.
Okay.
You're looking to change careers?
Hey,
Paul?
popcorn here.
Looking for a career.
Yeah. All right. It is Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium, and it's Evan, it's Paul, it's me, it's Deuce, and we're talking Patriots. We're getting closer to the draft. I can't believe next week is the draft.
Thank goodness.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I know.
I'm ready for the draft.
You are?
I'm ready for the draft to be here. Yeah.
I've been grinding away at my wide receivers.
Do we have a back of the envelope?
I'm starting to develop it.
Okay.
Yep.
Got the envelope.
Look forward to that maybe on Thursday. Maybe next Tuesday.
Next week.
Next Tuesday.
I could have it for this Thursday, but I want to have more than just wide receivers. So let's say Tuesday, I'll have my back of the envelope players.
All right. I look forward to it.
That's good. It's
right.
coming in, Fred. You're coming in with the
We can get
extra
it-
dose of energy at the end here because we're all running out of steam. We just
We can
shot
get
our
it in the
last
live
video.
show, though.
Yeah,
We can
it's
add
all
Fred,
new to me.
Oh, yeah,
Fred's
yeah.
back in the envelope, guys. We can put in the live show on Thursday.
Yeah, it's new to me.
Yeah, it's a guy named Travis Hunter. I guess he plays both ways.
Yeah, you
well,
hear about him?
He threatens you.
He's
to play
threatening now.
both ways. Evidently,
I
he's
better-
saying he will not play if he's not allowed to play both ways.
I like the competitiveness.
Yeah.
Full time, or did he not?
I
You know,
just reading.
Because
Warning
I
shot.
think any
Just reading
team,
the lower
any team
thirds.
that drafts him that doesn't use him at least somewhat both ways is crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
But we'll see.
Do you guys think it just depends on the team, what side he starts on the ball, or do you think he will start on wide receiver or cornerback regardless? Here, I think we all agree probably wide receiver, but would that apply everywhere else he was
It's a good
drafted? you think?
question.
It is a good question because I do think it depends on the team.
Agree.
Yeah.
System
Yeah.
dependent.
I think
Yeah.
it depends on the team.
It's kind of weird because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such two different elements you're bringing to your team. I mean, you still have some hope that he might contribute both ways, but let's just say Cleveland's outlook on him taking him to play cornerback, for example, would be totally different than our outlook on him
Yeah.
coming here to play wide
Like,
receiver.
so, yeah, I
essentially.
mean, I think it would be team dependent. Cincinnati probably would look at it as we need help in the secondary more so than wide receivers with Chase and Higgins. Maybe they would go the other way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good question.
see.
But I'm still sold on Will Campbell. I think that's who they're going to end up with.
You seem to be in the majority. A lot of people talking the way.
Yeah.
I know Evan and Mike, talk the same way. And
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
are
Although the
resign themselves to the fact.
Shador Sanders to the Giants is picking up steam.
That's the wild
He
card.
does have
but-
a workout.
So
Like,
we
we're going to have a
Oh,
guest
we
very,
have a
very
surprise
quickly. So I'm
guest.
going to step out and give him my
Paul's going to
seat.
step out.
Hey, Marcus.
Hey, it's Marcus Jones. Come on in. What's up, Marcus? Good, good. So you're just in the neighborhood? Figured you'd pop in? That's great.
Something like that.
That's awesome.
Something like that.
Well, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
Appreciate it.
First, we might have had you on draft after the draft. Were you ever?
It's
in here
been a
before?
minute. It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think his parents are fans of the show.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
I think
Yeah.
we
yeah.
saw them
I
at
don't
one
know
of
if
the
that's a good
training
thing or a
camps.
bad thing.
So, Marcus, Mike, Evan, you know these guys.
For sure.
I'm Fred. You've had a busy off season, and you just got back from Germany, right?
Oh yeah.
How
yeah.
was that?
It was great. Spent some time with everyone over there. You know, started to realize how many fans that we have over there, which is crazy. Ended up doing that. I was happy to end up seeing just flag football grow as a whole. You know, seeing the youth, men and women, you know, playing the same sport is great to see and everything. And then also got to do a little bit of the music side over there and
you
everything like
met
that
with
too.
the kids,
Yeah.
like their version of the YMCA.
For sure.
And you made some music with them.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool.
It was crazy just off the fact of seeing how, you know, they basically make music. You know, a lot of people end up saying, oh, is it different over there? I mean, first thing is the language, of course.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. But other than that, it's the same thing whenever it comes down to genres of music, for sure.
Absolutely. And you met one fan. I saw on one of our social media accounts, you actually had a one-on-one with a fan, young kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Just off the fact of just, you know, meeting him and talking about, he was telling me the PlayStations and everything that he has. He's still playing the Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, that's crazy. You know, you say that to certain people, they think it's the DS. You know, he was like, no, the normal, yeah. I'm like, you could barely see that, you know what I mean? But he says he played Madden on there and everything and just, you know, was chopping it up with him and just building a relationship with him for sure.
Well, I got to ask you, Marcus, because this year we had New Year's resolutions, and mine was I was going to get serious about my music.
Okay.
Which I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I do play a little piano, a little guitar. But I'm just, when did you fall in love with music and becoming so, you know, it's such a part of you, who you are. It's a huge part of it. Where did that come from? What was the origin of it?
I was just kind of around it. My dad had turntables and everything, so he had like a little mic booth. So I'll see some of his friends just recording, just making music just off the playing around as a hobby, and then he had MPCs. So as time went on, I was around it 24/7, and then eventually around, I want to say like high school, one of my real good friends, Darius Kears, he was like, bro, I'm gonna start producing. And I was like, I know a little bit about that because my dad used to do it. So as time went on, I purchased like Logic, which is a DAW interface. I mean, a DAW, but basically a program to where I ended up just learning how to end up making beats. And eventually I was like, man, I gotta start recording myself because people don't want to listen to instrumentals 24/7. You know what I mean? So I was like, I gotta learn how to record myself. So then I ended up doing that, finding my sound, and just kind of going from there.
I like the house music, so I like it.
Yeah, no,
But,
house
get the
music,
German house music
nice.
going there.
But it's not just music. I saw you doing color grading on
yeah.
video.
That's
You're
my
into
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like that's awesome. That's an awesome skill to have.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand how much it takes just off the fact of making movies or just making films in general. So I really connected with one of my real good friends. His name is Stefan. He's the owner of Company 3. People that know, they'll know. But he started in '98, and he's a colorist. So whenever I ended up getting into just content in general, my girlfriend was like, baby, you should start doing content. I was like, I'll think about it. But I love storytelling, and when it comes down to it, it's just not off the fact of just posting. You know, it's about, you know, just being more personable and letting people know, you know, that it's an art. So as time went on, I purchased a camera, a Sony FX3, and then kind of went from there of like, oh, okay, it looks really good, but people started talking about log. And I was like, what is log? And it's, you know, the closest thing to black and white. So it's a flat footage, and basically you go in and you color it. So everything that we see on TV, movies, and everything like that, it looks really good. And whenever we see it in person, it's like, dang, it looked really good on TV, but it don't look as good as it, you know,
Right.
as it does in person. But just getting into that, and I got a whole like setup and everything, and basically just playing around with that, but trying to get real good at it for sure.
So when do you have time for football?
Oh yeah, no, I always make time for that.
But you like to tell stories. What's the story of this offseason so far in terms of coming back here to Gillette? What do you have to tell us about that?
Oh yeah, man, I'm happy to be back. Just off the fact of seeing everyone, you know, sharing the stories of everyone's off season, building connections with new guys in the building.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And then also, you know, the new coaching staff, you know, those guys, they're they're down to help us out when it comes down to learning and taking it step by step. We're not looking too far into the future, of course, but taking it one day at a time, and I like where we're going for sure.
First impressions of Coach Vrabel?
It's one of those situations to where he brings energy.
Yeah.
You know, he means what he means, and he shows the love and compassion with it. So love that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just how are you feeling physically coming off of last season, and kind of where are you at with that?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling real good just off the fact of conditioning. It's still early in the process of us, but as during the off season, I was still working out, doing all those things and everything. So feeling good about that. And like I said, well, not even 2 weeks in yet, but just stacking the days for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. This time just about getting the body ready, starting to lay the foundation
for sure.
for what you're going to get into.
Yeah,
it's
like I said, it's so early. You know, we're not looking too far, but it's great to get back in the building. You know, get back to working out, having some structure and everything, and then also, you know, learning the installs is very important.
Are you paying any attention to the draft, or are you one of those guys like, just tell me who we pick and I'll pay attention afterwards?
What's crazy about the draft is, like, when you're in it and you've been a part of it before, it's just like, hey, whoever ends up coming, we're welcoming. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're happy for whoever ends up being a part of the team. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's above our pay grade. We don't get to choose at all. So it's like, why even stress about that? But, you know, whoever they end up picking, you know, we know that they're doing it from the sense of helping our team, you know, end up building. So we're happy with whoever they end up choosing for sure.
Yeah.
I left him off my big board. Me and Evan, we were draft nerds. We get way into
that
it.
was on you.
I've done like 15 years. Like, here are my 50 favorite guys, and then they picked you, and I'm like, how the hell did I miss Marcus Jones and not put him on?
Question. I mean,
I know you got
no
him right.
offense,
You had
but-
him. You had him on, but not me. So I'm still living that one down. But what are you gonna do?
You're one of those guys, though, coming out of the draft. You know, this time of year we talk a lot about measurables and all that kind of stuff, and that has always been something that stood out to me. Is that, you know, that never mattered for you, right? You always
Yeah.
played bigger than your size and all that kind of stuff. Like, how, I don't want to say overrated, but just like how much does that really matter once you get into the league? You know, and you kind of carve out a role for yourself and figure it out, just how to play within yourself, even if you are, you know, not considered this time of year like the ideal measurables.
Yeah, I would say the main thing whenever, you know, coaches end up, you know, watching stuff is usually they watch film. You know, everyone has, you know, weaknesses. You know, my weakness would be, you know, so-called height. However, you know, I make up for it in the sense of speed. So it can be also, you know, guys that's big. You know, they would be big, but they're not as quick. You know, but if you have all of it, then that's great too. But it's just one of those situations of knowing your weaknesses. You know, in a professional level, everyone's good at something. You know what I mean? But one thing that you can't teach is, you know, effort and finish. You know, which, you know, if you do that most of the time, good things will come your way. So that's one of those things to where I just keep my mind on that, you know, knowing, you know, where I am on the field, who I'm going against, knowing how they like to end up, you know, doing their releases or whatever. You know, studying film is a lot of it too. So kind of going from there and just making sure, you know, you're prepared at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, we're inducting a old coach into the Patriots Hall of Fame this year, Bill Parcells. You might have heard of him.
Yeah.
And one of the things he always says is players need to know who they are.
Yeah.
You know, so they can play within themselves and they can be the best of who they are instead
true.
of trying to be who they aren't. You know.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
I think
No,
one thing that
appreciate
stuck
it.
out to me just with you is how sticky you are in man coverage, and how do you develop that? And as you've gotten into the pros, how do you have to continue to learn to be able to stick with NFL elite wide receivers?
Yeah, when it came down to it in college, man, I had a whole bunch of coaches that just talked about eye discipline a lot. And one thing that, you know, what drove me crazy was, like, if I end up guarding a receiver and he catch the ball and I've seen him catch the ball, then it just doesn't sit right with me. Because usually, you know, if you end up getting beat on a route, which is going to happen, but when you get beat on a route and you watch the quarterback throw it, it's like, oh, man. But, you know, it's a little bit better from the sense of whenever you do get out of a break and you're still watching the receiver and then the ball comes, you react or knock the ball down. You know, those split-second decisions and everything make a big impact, you know, from the sense of a window being open for a quarterback and not being open. So that's my main thing. Make sure my eyes is in the right place. And then, you know, if you do have your eyes in the right place, you know, those interceptions and PBUs and everything like that can happen for sure.
It's like one false step in this league. I mean,
Yeah,
that's all
like
it comes
it's
down to,
milliseconds
right?
when it comes down to
Crazy.
it. Yeah.
When it comes to Coach Vrabel and this defense, you know, what do you do to prepare to get ready for training camps with the install and with the system and things like that, so you can kind of hit the ground running?
Yeah, this time and this phase of just the off season is basically, learning the small things, learning basically the philosophy of us as a team and then also as a defense. So that's the main thing that we're going with. And then also, we're early in the install, kind of going from there. And then, we'll get into phase 2 and phase 3 and getting onto the field. But just the classroom portion, that's the main thing that we're working on right now. And then as time goes on and everything like that, we'll repeat certain things. All right, we need to go over this again and kind of go from there. But it's classroom right now, and then, you got to be able to do all of it. Classroom, apply it to the field, walkthroughs, and then get to, full speed. So it's process for sure. Yeah, it's process. It don't just happen just like that. It takes time for sure.
Do they show you, like, Titans tape? Like, what do they kind of show you in terms of film, like, to watch? They say, we use a specific guy in Tennessee that we think will use you similarly. Like, how did that process go?
I'm not really going to say that. It's like we watch film just in general because at the end of the day, like, our coaches have been in different places. You know what I mean? So it's not really to where we're just looking at one team, and then it comes down to the situation of us, we've ran certain things as well. So it's all 32 teams, honestly,
Well, listen, we could talk to you all day. I know you got other things to do. We appreciate you stopping by. And, you got the music, you got your color. You're a colorist. You're doing all that stuff. If you want to do a podcast, this is the place.
Okay, for sure. No, I appreciate you guys.
Talk to you about all of this.
Okay, for sure.
We'll do the Marcus Jones podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Definitely make that happen for sure. I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You good?
Marcus Jones, everybody. Nice to see him here. See the rest of the guys back.
I just get a kick out of this because this is so long with this show. I've kind of wanted this to be the case where guys could just stop in and say a quick hello. I mean, we're right here. They go right by. It's great.
Right. We're in the neighborhood.
With
Stop in.
Yeah. We're all friends. We're talking music.
I can't believe you had him off your big board, Deuce.
Yeah.
How did that? How
it's
did
one of my
that slip
regrets.
through the
I know it was
cracks?
one of my regret ones. When you're at this point right now where you're like thinking about guys and. It's just I think they really needed a returner too, and they needed a slot guy, and that was one that him specifically that I was just like, man, that was one I took off, and he's in the mix, but
I'm just messing with you.
It's fun.
But the 3 phases, right? I mean, especially that was obviously still Belichick, and just the fact that he could play offense, defense, and special teams.
Wasn't off my big
I was
board.
like, how could this guy not be a Patriot? Then I remember doing some research on him, and he had all sorts of coaching connections to Steve and the Patriots and all this type of stuff through Rutgers, and it was the whole thing.
Yeah, I was tempted to ask him about Travis Hunter and all that stuff, but I didn't want to put him on the spot.
We didn't do it. I know we didn't.
I didn't want to put him, talking about another player and all that. But
he was asked about it last week.
Yeah. What did he say?
He said it'd be tough.
Yeah.
It'd be tough to play both ways full time.
Right.
He said, I'm not ruling it out, and everybody's different. Everybody. I wouldn't put any ceilings on anyone, but he said it would be pretty tough.
I mean, he's not full time, but he's a 3-way player right now.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we don't need Travis Hunter, right?
We need all the weapons we can get. I'm excited to just see what Josh thinks of him, what Josh is going to do with him a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely in the gadget game, like the screens and things like that, like that touchdown against Buffalo, always stands out to me. Just even if it's just once or twice a game, you throw a screen to him, and then you can use him as a decoy once you set up the fact that you will throw him a screen every once in a while. So he's a useful player, and he didn't play quite as much full time on both sides like Travis Hunter did, but in the league, he's probably the closest thing that we have, cornerback, wide receiver on offense to Travis Hunter.
Yep. So.
Yeah, I don't know of too many other guys. I can't even think of one off the top of my head.
No.
Playing both ways.
All right. So what were we talking about before we came in? We're talking about the draft.
Back of the envelope, guys.
Yeah, and so we were about to start talking about the latest that the Giants are going to have another private workout with Shedeur Sanders.
Paul's got this all laid out right now. He's got the complete beat on what we just did our draft
I think it's
show,
great, though.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think people are trying to make too much. That's part of my reasoning. I think this is sort of the Giants putting a big sign saying "Open for business" at the top.
I think so too.
Because I don't think that they have a lot of interest in drafting Shedeur Sanders at 3. Now,
But,
the news with the Saints that came out over the weekend about Derek Carr, maybe they're trying to say, hey, you really need him now, and we'll take him. We're interested in Sanders,
Right.
so if you
don't rule it out. Yeah.
I think it's hard to convince someone that you're going to take him if you're looking to trade with that team. You know what I mean? Like, so I think they're trying to just sort of drum up some business.
Kind of like the Patriots last year a little bit when they probably knew they were taking Drake May, but they're at least putting out there like, I don't know, we'd be open to hear stuff. But
yeah, and the difference with that is there were other options. Like you could legitimately convince somebody, well, I really want Jaden Daniels, but if I can't get Jaden Daniels, then it makes no difference to me whether it's Drake May or J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix. You could convince someone of that. If I don't want Shedeur Sanders, well, who am I, does it Jackson Dart? Like I think that's a tough sell.
Yep. So I'm wondering, like, has there ever been an incident in the history of the draft where a team went for this private workout and changed their mind? Like something in the private workout changed their mind.
I'll bet there has been.
I just don't know. I know it's, famously Dante Scarnecchia went out and worked out Nate Solder in Colorado like 2 days before the draft, and then came back and suggested that they take him, and they did in the second round. But this is
first round.
Volmer was a first-round pick?
Oh, you mean Solder or Volmer?
Oh, Solder. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Solder was a first-round pick.
You're good. You're doing good. You're doing good.
But this is a little bit more drastic than that. If they ended up, because of this, taking him high in the first round. So I don't know if there's
unless it's been a smokescreen all along.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they have really been interested in him.
I'd love to know if there was a team that last workout did it for them.
Well, I ask you, Fred, you've interviewed a lot of people. Have you ever had somebody you think you liked, you get to a final interview, and you're like, let's just bring this guy in to make sure, and then they kind of poop the bed?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Some people wowed in that interview, but it wasn't like, you can't compare it to this, though, really,
Physical. I mean, you think it'd be more physical or mental?
So I guess the second part to my question is, what could Shedeur Sanders do at this last meeting to actually flip their mind and say, you know what, he's our guy?
Yeah. What I wonder is this them at the top of the second round doing homework on Shedeur to potentially trade back into the first round and draft Shedeur at the end of the first round. I think there's just as much of a possibility that is the scenario here, that they're
could be
kind of going through in their heads, and him going at the top of the first. And the team that I continue to look at in that respect is Pittsburgh, who's sitting there, I think 21, somewhere around there. And I feel like if you're going to do that, then you have to get above Pittsburgh. Like, I can't imagine that he's going to get past Pittsburgh. So, to the question about this visit and all that, it does smell like ownership involvement. And we talked a little bit about this on the draft show. Last year, they passed on Bo Nix. They passed on Michael Penix. They passed on J.J. McCarthy, who didn't play. But those two other quarterbacks had promising rookie seasons. And if you're the Maras and you're the Giants, do you look at your football people and say, why isn't Bo Nix on our team right now? Right? And let's make sure 100% that we're not passing on a starting quarterback 2 years in a row. And I just wonder if that's what's coming up now, is ownership has gotten involved and said, wait a second, like, we're not going to draft the quarterback again? Like, we just did this last year that we passed on all these quarterbacks. We're not going to draft the quarterback again. Like, let's make sure. Let's go back and make sure that we're 100% sold.
How do the Giants view their team currently, the roster? Do they, last year we went into this just saying we need talent. Like, what's the Giants' assessment of their own roster? Like, do they feel like we've got talent, we just need a quarterback? Because they've got the receiver, or a receiver anyway.
They have some talent, but they're a long way away, I think. I mean, just watching
Neighbors, the
from
two
afar.
edges. Who else?
Yeah, I mean, and they had a promising rookie running back last year that played pretty well for them. I think their offensive line has improved, but it's still not what I would consider really good. They had to move a tackle inside to guard, Evan Neal, right?
Yep.
But
so,
the reason I ask is, like, if Evan's right,
holes.
And ownership stepped in, I could see the reason they stepped in is, hey, my front office, you keep telling us that we've got a pretty good roster. Let's get the quarterback, and maybe they do put pressure on them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Evan's right that happens. I'm just not sure that it's going to happen at 3. I just feel like if they liked him, I don't think you'd have all of this question about where Shedeur Sanders is going to go if one of those two teams really liked him.
No, but what I'm saying is at this point, ownership said, you better do more due diligence on this guy before you rule. Because you keep telling me that we're not that far away roster-wise. Well, then get back and take a second look at this guy. I don't know.
I just think if you pass on Shedeur, and I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't, but if you pass on Shedeur,
and
you run the risk of him going to Pittsburgh, New Orleans, wherever. If he has a great rookie season, you're out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because Shedeur's never going to let you live it down either. He's going to bring that one up.
Right. Like you did it twice.
These guys lose their jobs if that happens. Don't you think?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're Brian Dable and you're Joe Shane, you have to be 110% sure that Shedeur is not the guy.
Yeah.
Like that he's not that level of quarterback. And if you're wrong, then you're probably out of a job.
So back to my question: what could he do at this last meeting to flip their mind? Is it more forget about the on-field stuff and he convinces them with his personality?
Yeah,
and that's it to me because what package he's going to present is one of confidence of course you guys should pick me. Are you crazy? And that's why I don't know, maybe they would be turned off by his overconfidence or maybe he sweeps under the rug some of the things that he has to work on. I don't know, but
does he project a lot of intangibles? This guy might not be the most talented passer that's come out, but man, he's a leader. He can do
handle
this.
New York media.
People want to play for him. Maybe that's what he could.
Right.
Yeah.
Convince
them in a meeting.
Yeah. Throwing the ball against air is not going to make you all of a sudden think that this guy's a franchise quarterback. We're going to take him out to dinner. We're going to get him, out of his comfort zone a little bit, get him out of his shell. What kind of person is he? What kind of personality does he have?
Could you guys see, if you were in the position of the Giants, could you see someone doing that to you, having that type of impression, where you say, you know what, any shortcomings that we saw on film, this guy can overcome it.
For me, what I would love to see if I were in an interview with him is to see the other side of him, to not see the presentation that obviously Dion always had, the prime, that the character that he kind of plays. I'd love to just see the real guy and really, the guy that understands that no matter how good he is or isn't going to be or is, he's going to have to work. He's going to have to go through some ups and downs. The overly confident, just projecting you're an idiot if you don't take me. To me, that I find that a little bit off-putting. I'd like to see more of look, I understand there are things I got to work on. This is what I'm, that kind of perspective on his career rather than just this unstoppable confidence that he has, that he needs. But I don't know.
I think that's a big part of the whole thing. One of the main reasons why I kind of feel like this is just sort of window dressing is because of the reaction over the weekend. First it was Derek Carr, the news that first of all, Evan and I talked about this a little bit earlier too. The Derek Carr news didn't come as a surprise to the Saints. Maybe people, like us didn't know that he potentially would be out for the whole year, but the Saints knew that he's dealing with something significant.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
This didn't come out of nowhere for them. The second part of it is all of a sudden, that the reaction, the Twitter reaction of the Schefters and the Field Yates. And who's broadcasting that draft? ESPN might stand to get a little drama out of it. And then, you coincide that with the news that the Giants are bringing in Sanders. And how many people tweeted, it just gets more interesting. There's, this is, I believe there have been everybody is slated to have a first round pick. Nobody has two right now.
Right.
And that's never happened.
No, everybody has their own pick.
Everybody has their own pick. Now, in general, I don't know. There's more. It's not never, but it's also very uncommon for no trades. And they're all starting to tweet it out now. That will change.
It's coming.
That's this to me is a combination of you're promoting your television show, which you absolutely should be doing. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think they're also promoting Dion. Because I think that it's important to these guys to have an ally in Deion Sanders. He's a pretty important guy to have in your corner. I would think if you're one of these guys, you tweet, and it's not going to hurt your standing if you have him in your corner. And I think that's part of this because I think the NFL is telling you that they're not sold on Shedeur Sanders.
Right. Or
do you hear people saying that Cam Ward may or may not go in the top 3?
Right.
But you're hearing everybody say. Some people are suggesting he could go in the second round.
Right.
And I think that the people that, the Giant, Diana Rossini, the Giants are still interested, they're very strongly interested in quarterbacks in this draft, even before the Saints. They're very strongly interested even before the Derek Carr news. Like, yeah, if they were strongly interested in Shedeur Sanders, the Browns and the Giants have no real long-term solution at quarterback, right?
Right.
They're not convinced about Shedeur Sanders, or they'd be taking him.
Yeah.
That's why
And that's what I get back to.
It's a top of the second round thing, because that would make more sense to me just based off of everything that we've heard about this quarterback class. Basically going back to last fall, that this wasn't a quarterback draft and it wasn't a great quarterback class at the top. And, the reporting down in New Orleans is that they're not very high on Shedeur either, the Saints. So, like, they might be a Milroe team or a Jackson Dart team or something like that. And, like, all these quarterbacks, to me, like Dart, Milroe, maybe even Shedeur, are end of the first, early second round talent. So maybe that's where they all end up going. And these teams at the top of the draft that need quarterbacks, maybe they draft them all with their second round picks instead of their first round picks. And this workout could be just as much about the 34th pick in the draft as it is the third pick in the draft.
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if he makes it past 15. I just think any NFL team that passes on him has to kind of thumb their nose in the conventional wisdom of the NFL. Like last year, we didn't expect all those quarterbacks to go. I mean, we were talking the same thing about Bo Nix and Penix as early round 2 guys. I think the NFL values quarterbacks too much right now. He's going top 15.
But if that's true, Mike, if he does go top 15, 2 of the most neediest quarterback teams are in the top 5.
Yeah.
And that's why
so it doesn't make sense.
I'm not expecting him to go in the top 15. I think Evans. I think Evans 21.
Yeah.
That Pittsburgh might have to think long and hard, but if I had to pick right now, top 15 or second round, I'd pick second round.
Yeah.
This is good. This will be interesting. I mean,
that's
honestly,
a good
I feel pretty strongly about it. I feel pretty
debate.
strongly about. I think he'll go in the top 15. I really do.
Yeah, I think if anybody liked him, he'd be going 2 or 3.
But did we really hear? I mean, maybe did we hear that about Nix? Do we have any kind of sense that Nix and Penix were going to go as high as they did last year?
Penix, yes. Nix, no.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, there were people in Boston that liked Penix the most out of all the quarterbacks. Now, no one it wasn't like
Eldred.
No, but I mean, like people on my shows, and admittedly, they watch so little.
Ton of ball knowledge.
And all of a sudden, they watch like the national semifinal game, and they become enamored with them.
Yeah.
But Bo Nix, I didn't hear him. To Mike's point, I didn't hear anybody talking about Bo Nix as a.
I think
top
that
half
NFL
of
teams
the
are
first round
terrified.
guy.
I think the Giants are terrified. I think they're terrified, like Evan said, of missing on him. And not only would you miss on him, you're then going to hear it from Deion Sanders and from Shedeur Sanders the rest of their careers about how you passed on him. So many of these NFL teams operate the draft from a place of fear, and this is the position that terrifies everybody.
What would be the bigger mistake? Missing on him if he's good, or taking him if he's bad? It's another good.
That's a good one.
I think taking him if he's bad.
Just let me know when you want me to just take over as the PD here.
Yes. Missing him if he's bad.
Facilitate.
If the player you end up picking is really good, it alleviates missing him if he's good. But if you take him, you're stuck with him. And he better be good. If he's not, you've just wasted
like
a
if
third-round
Abdul
pick.
Carter turns out to be Miles Garrett, and they take Abdul Carter instead of Sanders, and Sanders is good, you're okay.
Yeah. We took a Pro Bowler. Yeah.
But if you
take him and he stinks, you're screwed. And like everybody keeps saying, Shane and Dable are out if they pass on him and he turns out to be good. Well, they're out if they take him and he turns out to be bad.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like last year they took Neighbors, who's a great player, and we all agree is a great player. But if Bo Nix's rookie season wasn't just a one-off, and that's Bo Nix year in and year out,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. Like that, you're going to be the team that
if
passed
Sanders
on
is good, they're in trouble.
Right.
No doubt.
Like I think
they're in just as much trouble if Sanders is bad and they take him.
Yeah.
But if they do take Sanders, do they buy a couple years?
I don't think so.
No.
I mean,
I think they're out if they take Sanders because I don't think they're going to win any games, and I think they're going to get shown the door.
In some ways, Sanders is the perfect guy to test this, though, just because he's so confident and he just exudes somebody who seems assured that they're going to be a top NFL player. So it's a collision of NFL teams maybe overvaluing the quarterback position and taking dumb chances on it,
Yeah.
and a quarterback who exudes like, if y'all don't take me,
the
you're
argument
dumb,
for
you
your
know?
top 15 is that.
Yeah.
The NFL has often
Yeah.
done dumb things when
Sure.
it comes to quarterbacks.
Owners
Now,
like quarterbacks.
now your ilk online,
I have Bill.
the bloggers,
Yeah.
as soon as this Giants story
like a shot.
started circulating,
little bit.
they got all excited because this is the pathway to Abdul Carter.
Right. I guess. I've been riding that roller coaster of. I gave him up like 2 weeks into my draft research because I'm like, he's way too good. There's no way he's getting a 4, and somehow, like, no, man, there's a chance. But
Well, now they're putting all this stuff out about what a bad guy he is.
Right?
And I was like looking for specifics as to what the bad, like.
I saw that with Phil Perry's reporting.
Not really. It probably won't be a captain anytime. Oh, okay.
I mean,
terrible guy.
I only
Not
saw
a
a guy, right, who played through a crazy injury and played with like one arm.
Not once have I heard. All I hear about is that football's not all that important to him. He's kind of selfish. And I saw a guy in college when, in an era of college sports where guys are bagging out of games left and right to protect their, quote, brand, he's out there playing with one arm and playing at a very high level with one arm. And evidently with a foot injury that, I don't know, may or may not be career-ending.
Should get to the bottom of that
I got
one
a little,
before we take one.
if you can't tell, I've gotten a little annoyed with how bad of a person Abdul Carter suddenly
I
became.
think he's horrible.
Right.
The last
Like,
week.
I think you'd be crazy to draft him in the top
know.
3,
Yeah.
Paul. I mean, what are you talking about?
And this isn't really even like normally that's where I would go, oh, big surprise, the Patriots, cartel is putting it out there. I don't think this is like gaining steam.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that he's the ideal football guy. Like, I told you, I talked to a teammate of his who said he's a little different, but he's really committed to being great. And when you put something about like how important football is to him, and Mike hit the nail on the head, like his postseason performance, playing the way that Boise State game and the Notre Dame game, like he couldn't even stay on the field. He was running off the field with one arm, like draped down the whole time. That's a guy who wanted to win. I'm sorry. That was a guy who was given max effort and wanted to win.
He's also just a guy that you can tell is so loaded with just natural talent that he's not one of those guys that has to be the, for better or worse, doesn't have to be the first guy in, last guy out, putting all. Like, he's just naturally gifted, and you're hoping that when he gets into an NFL program where he's now being pushed by players who are maybe not quite as good but have similar talent sets, that now he puts a little work in. Now he's going to go even farther, but he's just so freaking talented.
There's risk. I mean, you
But
never know with these guys.
But I just look at this the same way as listening to Christian Gonzalez talk now in hindsight about how people thought he was quiet and he wasn't like an alpha and he wasn't that like number one corner with the outward personality and all that stuff. And year 2 he's a second team All Pro and is one of the best corners in the league.
One.
Like, this is like, teams overthink this kind of stuff. I don't know if it will happen with Abdul Carter, but I hope it does. Like, go ahead. Like, think that.
I hope it does too, because I'll take him at 4.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
mean-
a lot better about that pick at 4 than really any of the other options.
Like they say, Monday through Saturday, he's not always like as locked in as you would like. Well, on Sunday when the game comes around,
Right,
I know
he's
what
wrecking
I.
the
To
game,
Paul's
he's locked
point,
in.
like I know what I'm
LT.
getting. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was never locked in.
Hey, Alex or Matt, can somebody help Evan with his microphone? It's about to molest him. So,
It's like.
yeah, it's
Look at this.
it's
Look at
drooping.
this.
Oh,
He's like,
nobody home. Oh,
No,
there.
Alex is
there's a
coming.
for that. I
It,
think.
it just needs tightening
It
at
just doesn't want to.
one of the joints. Yeah.
But I will say, like, we started off the whole show with saying, like, the draft is right around the corner, and it's starting to get that sort of
stupid.
anticipation, which I think this stuff has been really good for that. The meeting with Sanders and the Giants, the news about Derek Carr, Abdul Carter's red flags, like, this is good for that.
Sure it is.
It's good. It
yeah.
sort
Now
of
we just need somebody with a gas mask smoking a bomb.
lends some intrigue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be on air live next Thursday, starting. I think we start at 7.
7?
We're starting at 7?
When's the draft?
First round doesn't start till 8.
Maybe we start. No, I think we start at 7. We do an hour, and then we go into the.
We got to
draft.
check on that.
I don't know.
I don't think
We
we,
don't know
do
what
it.
we're
I don't
doing.
think we start
But
at
we'll be
7.
there.
I think we have some.
7:30?
Don't we have some like?
Well, the draft party starts at 7 here, right?
I have no idea.
And don't we take stuff
We're not
from the
invited to
stage?
that.
Yeah, we'll start at 7. It'll be fine.
Great.
Well, you don't want to start at 7?
Fred, we start when you say to start. When you say jump,
We're going to have the desks.
I say no.
We'll have the desk. So
I have a bad
There you go.
Achilles.
You can have your printed out.
We will have the
We're
desks.
at 7. We're starting at 7.
yeah.
7. I
Yeah,
don't believe we've started at
Because
7 in the past.
at the draft party, Vrabel will
'cause
come
that
up
never
probably. Elliot Wolf will probably come up. Robert Kraft. So we want to get all that live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said whenever
And-
you say to start, that's when we're
Yeah.
starting.
So excited about that.
Can I just what do we want to do on Saturday? We talked about this a little bit.
We like it. We like what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, what are the hours?
I think we're usually on like 12 to 2. I think usually
12 to
12 to
2?
2 or 2 to 4.
Something like that.
I kind of like 12 to 2, but
I think it starts at 12 on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Starts at 12.
You got a couple.
And they have a pick at the top of the 4th round.
yeah, we want to be on for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
12
pseudo
to
top
2.
100 pick, 106. It's a
All right.
could be a good player.
6. Yeah.
Top 100 pick, 106.
I said a pseudo top 100 pick.
Pseudo.
I'm
Okay.
counting it as a top 100.
All right. Just a programming note. Mike Vrabel will be going
Oh, yeah, I
live with a
forgot
press
about that.
conference at 1:00. So we're gonna
Today?
we're gonna throw to that. You'll hear him live, and then we can do our reacts to the press conference. And we should mention, last night we found out that Don Hasselbeck passed away. Patriot tight end, local guy. Now, your dad knew him at Reebok?
Yeah, so we went to work at Reebok after his football career. So my dad worked with him at Reebok a little bit. Matt and Tim both worked in the Reebok warehouse under my uncle Doug, which I talked about. I talked to Matt Hasselbeck. I went up to him. I was
That
Now,
like,
was
was
this
everybody.
before or
So
after the plumbing career in Scotland?
this is well after the plumbing
Okay.
career. But my uncle Doug would run the warehouse here where they box up the shoes and ship them out. So you had the young Hasselbeck boys boxing stuff up. I went up to Matt last year at the owners meeting. He's like, I remember your guy Doug. Yeah, it's my guy. He was all excited.
We're going to box it up and we're going to ship it out. Ship it.
But no, my dad loved Don Hasselbeck. Was a great guy, and had a little bit of a relationship with him. So yeah, that was sad, but good career, and then obviously his legacy lives on through the litany of Hasselbecks that are now all over the sports scene.
What's the high school here?
Zavarian.
Zavarian.
Is it Zavarian?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember which one it
Yep.
was.
Yeah.
I met Don a few times because he was involved with the alumni club.
Yeah.
So he would come to meetings.
I didn't realize he was 6'7".
Yeah,
He
big
was tall.
giant, huh?
Yeah, he was a tall
I think
guy.
I met him at some point at Reebok, but I didn't clock.
That was
he
a good
that
two
big.
tight end set with him and Russ Francis.
6'7", 245, like just long guy, but
Don't care for Zavarian though.
no.
To be honest.
You don't care for, I can imagine coming from Needham. Yeah.
Just
Public
like,
school.
Yeah,
St.
like
Sibs.
cool.
They cheat. They recruit.
They recruit.
They-
Now they
True.
have 7th and 8th grade as a variant, so
Oh,
they don't
man.
need to recruit. They
My
just
kid,
bring him in early.
My friend's kid couldn't even make like the 6th hockey team as a freshman at Zavarian. Like they have like 6, 7, 8 hockey teams.
They
like
recruit.
it's crazy.
They
And they're
give
not even that
scholarships.
good in hockey.
But we still beat them. It's fine.
It is a good school. It's
Whatever.
a tough school.
I don't have any respect for those schools.
All right. So R.I.P.
So I hear what you're saying.
Don
A little
Hasselbeck.
passive-aggressive shot at me right there.
All right, what else? We got Vrabel at 1 that we're going to go to. We saw Marcus Jones. If you missed that, if you tuned in late, we'll have that up on demand. Always good to see Marcus. He is like so involved in everything.
Yeah, he's a
He's
man
one
of
of
many
those-
interests.
Yeah, he's one of those Renaissance men.
Yeah.
He puts Eric Scalavino to shame.
Has he written a book though?
So does that mean he's a Renaissance man that actually does a lot of
Yeah,
different
he actually
things
does it. Yeah.
instead of just thinking about it?
By the way, somebody posted on one of the PU Unfiltered social accounts that we don't run, the unofficial ones. It was Eric. It was someone that looked just like Eric
I saw that.
Scalavino
Yeah.
with his girlfriend and a dog.
Yeah,
and it was,
nutmeg update.
it was like this funny thing where the dog actually picks the man instead of. But like, I had to take a double take. I'm like, oh, that's Eric. Like he found a girlfriend and he's got a dog.
And he's
Like,
got a dog.
like life is great. Didn't this guy look just
He did.
like him?
He did.
It was unbelievable.
He did. That was good. I had hope. for
Unlike
Eric
my
as well.
action figure.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That set the internet ablaze. Nice job by Alex on that
Great
one.
job by Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should have got some Northeastern in there. That was my only missed
Yeah,
opportunity there.
I had a lot of people.
Yeah, Northeastern had to
chiming
be
in.
part of
But
that.
otherwise, out of the park on that one.
Yeah.
Diet Pepsis and
Good
So,
stuff.
so my brother texted me a picture of
You
it. He
wanted
goes,
one?
have you seen this? And he wanted one for his shelf.
A lot of people
Well, I
want to
guess
know.
you can go online and do it yourself. Like it's like a thing where you can create your own action figure.
And get it printed and like shipped
Yeah.
and everything.
She didn't like do
No,
this.
no.
Oh,
Well, she did it. Yeah, no. That's how you make it. You go online and
AI
do it.
or
It's a big.
something.
It's a big
$49.99.
trend.
I never
You're
knew.
supposed to be the head of.
No.
You're supposed to be cutting edge, Fred. Even I knew about this trend.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know about it either.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I'm a
like,
little
I'm like,
worried
this is
about
a
Mike.
Alex. What?
You're telling me,
Right?
I mean, he's like,
No,
he's-
I
No
had no
one
idea.
knows less about this stuff than I do.
I didn't know about it. She said it to me. I'm like, this is brilliant. I thought she just came up with it all on her own, and then she's like,
Oh,
I had
that's
to
a
hop on the
definite.
trend. I didn't realize
That's
it was
a
trend at
definite
the time.
burgeoning trend.
Yeah, make yourself an action figure.
Paul's a cool kid. He understands.
I am not a cool kid. I am as uncool as you can get.
We gotta
as,
do
as the
Evans
action
this week.
figure would show you.
You look very happy in it, though.
Yeah.
Very happy action figure, Paul.
Someone said way too much hair.
All right. 855 past 500 is the hotline.
Got plenty of
Podcast at patriots.com is the email address. We're going to go to Vrabel at once. So let's try to
It's a big day
get
for
in some
Paulie.
emails and phone calls before he does.
Let's get it on tape.
We'll start with everyone's favorite caller. Christian in LA is on the line. What's up, Christian?
It's bizarre, you guys. If I don't call, people say you should call. If I call, they say, why the hell is this LA jerk calling? So I stuck in the middle like
That means you're
Oh,
doing it right.
you gotta call.
You're doing
You
it
gotta
right.
call.
What's,
I mean, you're doing it right.
all right, thanks for calling, Christian. No, I'm joking. All right, what do you got?
And so you guys know the reason why I haven't called is because I've been at my house in Italy.
Ooh.
Yes, family still hate me, but we have. But I want to say this to you guys. If you guys ever want to come out to LA, we have the house in Palisades, the house in Venice, and the house in Marina Del Rey. You have a place to stay. Anytime you guys want to come, please take me up on the invite. And if you're out there in Patriots land, if you can get to me, you guys are welcome too.
Lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Yeah.
This
Wow.
guy.
Wow.
I'll offer my in-laws' place in Sherman Oaks as well for anyone.
nice spot.
Christian, can I hit you up for a loan?
Yeah.
He's got a palazzo.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember
I heard there's nothing available in Italy. Like it's all
Tuscany.
Tuscany. There's nothing
I
available.
knew you were fighting to figure out exactly
Well,
where.
George Clooney's house.
Our place is in Parma, but yeah,
Parma.
something like that.
Okay.
Do you like Paul's Eat, Pray, Love?
But
You know, you could do your version of that.
That he knows.
Do you guys remember Wimpy from Popeye?
Wimpy and Popeye. Yeah, I'll gladly pay you $1 tomorrow for a
For a
hamburger today.
Yes, I'll pay you Tuesday for $1 today. That's what I'm saying. So you guys can see me Tuesday for a stay in LA today. To football.
All right. So what do you got? We got to get some more calls on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having my back anyway. So here you go. I think that this is the year that even though we have a staunch history of doing things by the book, we always go straight down the middle. We go for the best value. We do the right thing. When it's not by idea, we trade down. But I think this is the year that we have to grab the bull by the horn. And I know you guys are going to say it takes trading partners to pull this off. But I think we owe it to the development of Drake May and to the fandom to do something radical and exciting. I think we should package our number 3 pick because I don't think in this draft anybody from the third round is going to help us put wins in the win column. But I do think that we do something radical and we package that third guy, we trade up and get Travis Hunter. I don't care what it takes. This is the year we just do something crazy and radical like that. I believe Drake May deserves it. I believe it's going to be a decade-long thing where you can look back and go, who'd they take at 3, 4, 5? You won't remember, but you would be able to go, who'd they take at number 4? And if it's a Travis Hunter or, someone like
Well,
that.
it's a risky move, and thanks for the call, Christian. A lot of
you
people
guys.
agree with you, but
I wouldn't be opposed to moving.
no,
up to
it's a
get Travis
risky
Hunter.
move though because A, you're losing those extra picks, and we need more guys, and B, if you're doing that, it's because you think he can be a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So it's risky on two fronts.
Yeah, he answered his own question. I just don't see someone saying, "Oh, I don't need Travis Hunter. I'll just move down."
Well, that's it for me. And we talked about it being a 2-player draft. What would it take for you to move out of the top 2 picks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot. If we were in that position, I don't know if there's anything that would really move the needle unless it was one of those transcendental offers of future first and everything.
Yeah, I would just disagree a little bit with the third round pick not being valuable. I think this is a draft where third round picks are valuable. Like, this is not a top heavy draft. This is a deep draft where there are players in the second, third, and fourth rounds that people project to be starters at the next level. I would say it's the opposite. Like, this is a draft that doesn't have the blue chip talent at the top, but has the depth throughout the draft at certain positions. So, when you look at the board, I think there's a lot of players in the third round that could be useful players.
I'm seeing that, like I said, I'm kind of crunching the wide receivers now. I'm seeing that at the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of guys, like, if you believe that they can be coached up, they've got the raw talent that, they've got some upside.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, can they learn, do they take the coaching?
Yeah.
And you find those guys, and that's who you're going to take out of this draft.
Yeah, I just feel like we're so quick to label a draft bad because there's the blue chip talent at the top is not necessarily there. But to me, this is a starter draft, not a star draft.
I liked how you put that on Twitter. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
It's a really good draft if you are just looking for starting caliber quality NFL players. You can fill out a roster in a draft like this. Now, you're not going to get a Hall of Famer most likely out of a draft outside of those two guys, or maybe Genty, but I think the receiver position's a great example. There's a lot of great third and fourth round receivers in this draft. There's a lot of guys that probably have ceilings as like wide receiver twos in the league, but are considered to be pretty solid all around players, but they're just not Malik
Right.
Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right. Ryan's in New Hampshire. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Thanks, first time caller. Glad to call in. Quick question, I'll take it off air. You guys actually were just talking about the wide receivers and being in the third and fourth round. There are a lot of talent, but with all these defensive players that I'm seeing drop in all these mock drafts that I've looked at, would you be opposed to skipping on wide receiver in the draft and just taking a look at maybe some free agent options that we could sign for a year and just fill a gap until next year? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
I wouldn't. I am.
And I guess he means going defense heavy.
Yeah.
Or just not. I mean, I think they need the tackle for sure. That's the piece of it. But I mean, Evan and I just did our last mock drafts. We both took a round 2, round 3 kind of guys. There are flyer guys that we like there, but ultimately, are any of those guys really going to come in and truly move the needle? I don't know if I can make that case. I could see letting this giant wide receiver group flush itself out this year, and I could see it.
Yeah, I hear the thought process. I just think that they're in a position where they have to keep throwing darts at that position. Like, until you solidify a wide receiver room that is a legit NFL wide receiver room with talent that can be on a playoff caliber type of offense, I think you have to keep on taking lottery tickets, even if it's a little bit later than maybe they went last year at receiver. I would still do it, in rounds 2 through 4 at some point to just add another person to that room that has some upside and has some, talent, special talent.
I would agree with you both. And I would just say that I don't think there are difference-making free agent wide receivers to be had. Now, if you want to talk about a trade, of someone that maybe we don't necessarily know, a lot of people have thrown out Brandon Ayuk, but, A.J. Brown, I don't see those kinds of moves happening, but I could be convinced that those guys would be difference makers.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown is, almost anybody in the league's number one wide receiver. There's probably 5 teams in the league that wouldn't consider him their number one option. That would make a difference. At this point, who's still out there? Like Amari Cooper?
Yeah.
Is he still available?
Yeah,
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where you're at.
Good players, but they're not going to solve your issue.
Yeah.
They're not going to be even really stopgaps for you. You need someone to develop.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Eric in Rochester, New York, on podcasts at patriots.com, the email address. After hearing the back and forth about where Shedeur Sanders will get drafted and hearing both Paul and Mike's takes, there needs to be some sort of bet placed on it. The wager should be something fun, like having to wear the jersey of the team he gets drafted to during the post-draft Patriots Unfiltered, 25 push-ups to see if either could actually do it, or something equally emasculating. Love the show. Can't wait to see who the Patriots draft in the first round. So what would
I don't feel strongly enough to bet anything because I don't follow this crap.
No.
Like, I just...
Not even a Jersey Mike's.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, just to have fun with it. But, like, I just don't want this to come off as like, oh, idiot, you were wrong. Like, yeah, if he gets taken in the top 15, yeah, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to sit there and sort of, stake my claim to, like when Vernon Golston was coming out and I was like, this guy is a can't miss, and he stunk.
Beast.
Like,
he looked good.
That was different. I was in on Vernon Golston. I was anti the Richard Seymour pick. Turned out to be a Hall of Fame player. Like, that's different than this. I don't know where Shedeur Sanders is going to get taken.
No, just for the record, I could do 25 push-ups.
Oh, I could do 25
right
push-ups. Now.
After lunch.
Now, Fred. Maybe not this time last year.
This might be worth
push-ups
challenge. 25?
I'd have a harder time doing the sit-ups.
Pull-ups would be tough.
Pull-ups. Forget
pull-ups.
it.
Can I just hang for a minute?
I might be able to do one based on the jump up to the bar, which get the momentum going.
Well, you do the pull-ups are easier.
These are pull-ups.
These
are chin-ups.
Chin-ups are easier.
Look at Zolek's jacket. He's wearing like a sequin jacket on air with his number 16.
Oh, I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's cool.
Hypercolor.
Alex from Newmarket, UK, long time, first time, absolutely love the show as well as Catch 22. I've been back and forth on what the Patriots should do at 4. It looks like the draft will open with Ward, then some combination of Hunter and Carter. For me, the right move is to run the card up for Will Campbell. Short arms be damned. It might be a need pick, but I think he's closest to a sure thing at a position of value at the top of the draft, and I love the attitude and toughness. I think he's the best effort and finish guy available. Assuming they take Campbell, how likely do you think it is that they trade into the back end of the first round for a receiver? I'm trying to gauge how long I should stay up for.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it probably for a receiver. I'd probably do it for an edge, though. I think that you're going to have an edge that falls to that territory. That would be appealing to me. Those are the two positions I feel like. If you could get a left tackle with that first pick, and then you could get one of the really good edges that, really probably day one, first round kind of grades that fall into the 20s, 30s in that area. That to me, the receiver's tough. I don't think you could try trading up for Emeka Egbuka, or what's the guy from Missouri's name?
Luther
Burden. I get what people want to get with the receiver position, and I understand why. And I don't want to get carried away with the fact that they have 10 receivers on the roster right now, and that just seems like an absolute.
I'd be interested in Golden or Burden, but I don't know if it's. I don't know if you want to give up like with Fred's theory of those picks could be valuable. Like at some point you need to restock your roster with players that are going to be here, longer term. I don't want to say the long term because you never know. And I'm not suggesting that they need to hit on their second round pick, their third round pick, their fourth. These guys need to be the pill. Yeah, ideally, yes, but that's hard. They need to find some players, and I think the more dart throws you give yourself, the more opportunities you have to hit.
They need to have some similar drafts that they had end of the 1990s and early 2000s, where they had 2 or 3 guys that ended up being foundational guys,
Yeah, every year. Every year you start stacking it.
Like in 01, you get Seymour and Light. Those are 2 guys that were fixtures for you for a decade. That's how you have to fix this.
Yeah.
That's the best way to fix this.
Right. Let's go to Sal in Connecticut on the hotline. What's up, Sal?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, Sal.
Look, listen.
Stop.
If Will Campbell's there at 4 and the Pats think he can play tackle, I don't think there's any hesitation they should take him. This team needs tackles more than it needs anything else, including receivers. In fact,
I agree with that.
I'm sure that I took a second tackle somewhere on day 2 or late day 2 or early day 3. Receivers, you can acquire very good receivers, as we've learned from history, later than the first round, and some of the best have come from beyond the first round. Some of the ones in the first round have fallen flat. That's all I have to say, and hear your comments off. Thanks.
Okay.
So I really agree with his first overall premise.
I do too.
If they're convinced that he's a tie, I said this last week when you guys were all banging the table for Will Campbell. I am fine with Will Campbell as long as they think he's a tackle.
Yeah.
I am not fine with Will Campbell because, if he doesn't work out at tackle, he's a good guard. I'm not fine with that. But if the way that Sal said that, I'm with him. I disagree about the wide receivers.
Well, certainly it hasn't been easy for this team.
There's been a lot of good, but there's been a lot of good wide receivers taken in the first round too.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's busts at every position.
Sure.
I go through this rant every year when everybody tells me that, the safe picks are, X, Y, and Z. There's busts at every spot. There's been a lot of good wide receivers taken in the first round. I mean, just look last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was 4 good ones taken in the top 15 picks.
Yeah.
3 of them were really good.
Yep. Just a reminder, as soon as Mike Vrabel comes to the podium live, we'll be going to him. So we'll cut away with him. But in the meantime...
What do you think the first question to Mike Vrabel will be? So in other words, you have to get inside the mind of Karen Garigi.
Right.
Yeah, I think probably just maybe. I mean,
Mike, who you picking?
Right. Yeah. I mean, how's it all going? You have the players back in the building for 2 weeks. How's it all coming together?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Let's see. This is Jarrell writes in. Where's he from? He doesn't say. Eric wouldn't like that. Matthew Slater spoke at my company in Boston last Tuesday. He spoke about the Patriot Way. I have something to ask about that. And how it wasn't about Bill or Tom Brady, but about the men who donned the uniform and united together to give it their all day after day.
It's really about the men who donned
Iron,
uniform.
sharpening iron. He spoke about his first meeting with Brady, his journey into the NFL, and how Bill called him out for the first time during a meeting and said, Slate, can we do this correctly or so I don't have to call your mom to say you're in the hospital? My question is, what do each of you think will be the culture Vrabel implements, and how do you think he will implement it with the team?
Accountability?
Yeah, I was going to, that was the word I was thinking. Yep.
Thing I've heard from
trust.
Yeah, Will Compton and Taylor Lewan was that he likes to question guys, keep guys on their toes in meetings. I know that was a big Bill thing, and I think if you're going to ask guys to study and know your opponent and putting guys on the spot, and I think there's a level of respect so that you want to answer those questions from Mike Vrabel correctly. So
well, you keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
Like I could be asked something, so I better be ready.
I hope you get a team that's locked in and plays tough. I mean, it's all the cliches of a good.
I think what
team.
you're going to get is something very similar to the mentality of Belichick, with a different personality, a vastly different personality, and hopefully it blends those two things well. Here we got Mike right now.
Let's go to Mike.
Send our condolences to Betsy Hasselbeck, to Matthew, to Tim and Nathaniel. Obviously, their grandchildren. One thing I would say, talking about a successful man is someone that raises genuine, caring, thoughtful children, and that's something that Don certainly did. So our thoughts and prayers are with the Hasselbeck family, former player here, former NFL player, rep, union rep, and then, just was always around when I was here, and got to have interactions with him and know his children. So, want to send our regards to them. Been exciting here with the players being in town. It's kind of unique with the draft prep and the timing of all this. So, there's certainly a great energy that's around our building, and want to continue to take advantage of that, to build on that, to grow that, and then excited about bringing great young players or great some of them I think with the COVID years are a little older now than what they used to be, but rookie players onto our football team through the draft and the post-draft process. So with that, Karen, what do you got?
With the draft a week or so away, I was curious if you have received many, if any, calls from teams looking to move up to number one.
Well, I'd say it's probably a little early for that in my experience. Probably a little early for those conversations. A lot of those happen next week as we get a little closer to the draft. I think there's still some prep and some managing that goes on and the coaches' reports, and so it's probably a little early for some of those conversations to happen.
Like, kind of follow that up with Karen, what she said. In those situations, are you past drafts, have you been a guy that's like, if you see a guy that you want, are you willing to trade up, see a guy, maybe trade
Well, as far as manipulating the draft and the board and the value, and we've gone up and we've gone down, and places that I've been. I think you're just looking for the best value, and you're trying to find players that are, obviously talented and what we feel like are great fit here for us and can help our football team at different levels. And so that happens at the top of the draft. That'll happen, in the middle parts, and then obviously as you get towards the end and there's somebody that you want and you may get, or somebody gives you an offer and, you're trying to get a little bit more draft capital.
Mike, the fact that high premium on high character guys in free agency, also good football players.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the most important thing, but yes.
So does that translate to the draft, or do you feel like because you brought in guys like Morgan Moses, maybe you can take a risk in the draft because you feel like your locker room is strong?
Well, we don't want to take risks. I mean, we want to be aggressive. I think there's a difference between taking risks and being aggressive and adding quality players and people to the roster. That'll happen throughout player acquisition. I think that's something that's important, but certainly the talent of the player has to be evaluated first, and then you go through a lot of different exercises and conversations and to try to figure out the type of person. But you can't win and you can't do what we want to do with just a bunch of good dudes. That's not going to get it done.
You have Abdul Carter in the third visit this week. I'm just curious what you've seen from him on tape and just what you learned from him in that visit.
Well, we're not going to discuss any of the interactions in the 30 visit, but I appreciate the knowledge of him being in here. I don't think he took too many of them, but I would say that the tape is dynamic. There's a lot of great qualities of a disruptive pass rusher, a very slippery, loose, sudden player, and it was a fun tape to watch.
What's your overall goal, and what do you hope to accomplish with this first draft class for you here in New England?
The overall goal for the draft?
Draft class, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's to add as many quality players and quality people. You want to come out of it with some starters. You want to come out of it with some depth role players that can build the strength and the depth of the roster, the backup players and the situational players, and there's just trying to find a fit for all these different players where they are and what we see them doing, and then ultimately they'll come in and define their role, and then also in the post draft process is trying to find some players that may have fallen through the draft that we have an affinity for, or we feel like that we can develop. They have some traits that we can develop, and that's something that we believe strongly in as well. Once you get through the draft.
Mike, the fact that you're the one doing this pre-draft press conference, does that reflect that you have final say over the draft?
No, I think that would just reflect that I was the person chosen to talk to you guys today. We're excited about where we were in free agency, and Elliot and myself and Ryan and Matt and Cam. I want to thank all of them for their efforts thus far. The scouts, I've always enjoyed sitting down with them, asking them questions. I mean, these are the men and women that have been around, these players and at practices for the last 2 years and have seen them interact with their teammates. They've seen them practice. So I want to thank them. I want to thank the coaches for their involvement in the draft process and in free agency and evaluating them. They're getting ready for our players to come in, and they're evaluating players. And, as a coach, sometimes, and as an assistant coach, you evaluate players and you don't end up getting the guy that you spent a bunch of hours evaluating and you might have liked, and that's how it goes. And then you go to the next year, but we're always trying to bridge that gap. I'm getting around to that between coaching and personnel. And the longer that I do this, I always see that there's players that the personnel side may really like, and there's players that the coaching staff may covet for different reasons. And so my job and Elliot's job and Ryan's job is to bridge that gap, and then to come up with a player that we feel like is best for our football team at that particular level. So there's been a great alignment, and we're all excited about what we've been able to do in free agency. Have only, I think, reaffirmed that by seeing these guys in the building for the past just 6 days, but it's been awesome.
How do you feel as if you're going to be more aggressive instead of just letting the draft come to you? Like, if you see something, do you think that you as a group will say, look, we got to make something?
Yeah, I don't know if you can answer that. I think we always, when we coach the football team, we ask the players to play. We want them to be aggressive. We don't want them to be reckless. There could come a time, and I think there's a lot of possibilities. There could be players that maybe we covet on the board that are there at a certain point, and we have to determine, how far we are away from where that player is. And, that'll be the same thing when you talk about trading back. Like, how far do you want to trade back? Are there still going to be players there that you want at that particular level? So I think we all have experience enough doing that, of going up and going back and presenting. Every time you pick, there's probably are we going to stick and pick, or what's the best offer that we have? And that's the role of the personnel staff, is to kind of field those calls as they come in. And sometimes they're good offers, and sometimes they're not so good offers.
Do you feel like there's a tackle in this class that would be worthy of being taken at 4 overall?
I think there's some starting tackles that certainly will come in and start in the NFL. And I think that's, really what you start to look for, right, is impact players when you start picking that high. What they're going to do for you, what's the impact, what's the position. You talk about premium position. And so then that's where you kind of weigh all the circumstances and end up, making that pick. So do I think that there's starters in this draft at left tackle? Yes, I do.
What's the role of analytics in your process, and how do you balance what the numbers tell you versus what your eyes tell you and what your scouts tell you?
Yeah, we've, I think you rely on analytics to help you ask questions about what you see on tape. And not only ask questions, but answer and get them answered. And so I think that it's a quick, very good snapshot of what you need to talk about: durability, you talk about height, weight, speed, measurables, time missed. Does that correlate to potential time missed in our league, and the durability? So those are all things that they can give you. You can talk and you can look at certain positions, right, analytically, as it relates to the receivers and their drop percentage, or their ability to gain yards after the catch, or their contested catch, or how much separation yards, right? And then you go to the next position. So every position has a different analytical number or value that we would kind of look at. And then you go back and you watch the tape, and those, when those things are highlighted, you certainly want to make sure that all those things are accounted for.
And are there any traits that maybe are translate more to success in the league, or are there some where you think you can work and kind of work them out when they get to the pros?
I think production. You start with production and see, guys can make plays in the college level. Usually that's a good place to start, and then you would obviously just translate to certain things that edge rushers may have. You can look over the course of the last 10 drafts, let's say, and see how those players did with certain scores and numbers. And some of them maybe were more productive and maybe in the NFL than they were in college. That's always one that I have to really focus on and ask why. And maybe it's a different scheme that maybe a guy's just rushing against a team that throws a bunch of RPOs and the ball's out, or and not doing as where the passing game is a different passing game. And I just go back to like Daniil Hunter, right? I always use this example. Watched him at LSU. He wasn't a very productive by numbers, but he tested well, and he had the height, the weight, and the speed. And certainly when you look at what he's done in the National Football League, it's been very impressive. So I always go back to that and make sure that, if the production's maybe not off the charts, then what else is there that we should be looking at that would translate to being successful in the National Football League?
Since we talked to you last 2 weeks ago, do you have a better vision of what the top of the draft might look like and who might not be on the board when you guys are picking?
No. I think that, we probably know as much as everybody else and what gets reported. Tennessee's not calling, or Cleveland's not calling, even though I was a consultant there last year. I haven't heard their plans on who they want to pick. So, we'll see as we get closer if any of that information is available. We would love to have it.
What has generally been your philosophy in the past on drafting best available as opposed to position and need, and how does that evolve maybe round by round or even year to year?
Well, would love for them to align. having a need and having the best player be there. That doesn't always happen, and we certainly want to pick the best player as many times as we can, and the player that we think at that point is the best player, and then we'll figure it out. Maybe you look at one position and we may have some returning starters, or we feel like our starters, or there's depth of that position, but to add premium players when available is something that you should probably always try to do.
Players that are graded, similarly on the board. Like, what are some of the tiebreakers that you guys put into account if off the film, maybe they have similar grades?
Yeah, there's kind of the ranking system within the grade, right? When you start stacking players horizontally amongst their position, and then vertically amongst their position, and then you start to look at it horizontally, that other players at another position with the same grade would rank higher. So maybe one player over here would lose out to another player over here, even though they're on the same line, to kind of give you an idea. But then within the position, versatility, ability to play another position, some of probably the testing numbers are what we feel like on film, but we try to go through and that's done and finished as far as the vertical process of where we see each player.
Mike, when you think back specifically to the first round picks you had in Tennessee, what lessons about what worked with those players and what maybe didn't will inform how you approach this pick at number 4, because it's the highest you've ever had to make?
Yeah, what kind of injury? We took a couple guys with injuries that we thought were talented, and maybe what injuries, as they fell and that value got, to the point where we were comfortable taking it. I think that's something that's critical. What's the ability for players to recover from one injury versus another injury, I think is something that I learned. The impact that player makes and demands on a quote-unquote first-round pick, I think is something that's, just like the quarterback. You have to be the face of the franchise, but everybody's going to be talking about the first-round pick from the time that we pick them until, for as long as they're here. So that kind of gets carried with them, and I think you have to have the attitude and the demeanor to handle some of that.
Stephon Diggs, I'm just curious that you had him in for the visit and everything. This is kind of the first time you're going to see him actively working out with the group since the ACL tear and all that. I'm just curious what you're seeing in his recovery and how he's doing with that.
I think he's doing everything, like everybody else. He's working hard, and I think he's excited about being here and being a Patriot. He's a motivated player. He's a hungry player, just like everybody else that's here and that's working. And that's been the most exciting thing, I think, for me, is that they're asking good questions. They're into it. They know that some things are going to be different, and that change happens every year.
If Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are gone when you selected 4, do you know what you're going to do? You don't have to say what you're going to do. Do you know what you're going to do?
Well, we're in the process of going through what everybody calls these simulations, and that's been and will continue to be good exercises. It's just running scenarios and what we would do based on those scenarios. So to say that we have a definitive answer on those scenarios, no, but those are processes that are ongoing, and will be done here shortly.
Mike, how important is listening to you when hearing the right things from these players as you talk to them and ask questions and hear that back? How much does that sink in with you as you go about the process?
What sinks in the most with me is the first exposure to the second exposure to maybe the third exposure. And it's difficult. I think just, you don't really know what you're going to get in the first exposure, and I think that's kind of not very fair either to be walked. Some of these guys don't even know what room they're in at the combine. Like, if there's not like a Patriot logo somewhere in the room, it would be hard for them to every single time know which room they're in, because it's just the hallway's tight and there's a bunch of people out there and they get shuttled into a room. Hey, this is so-and-so. Like, I could tell them I'm Tom Curran, and they'd be like, hey, nice to meet you at that point. They just really, they just, there's a lot there. But then the next exposure, they get a little bit more comfortable. And then the next exposure, whether that it's at Pro Day or the 30 visit, you start to see maybe who they are and you know, kind of what their personality is.
Mike, do you have any philosophies or opinions on running backs, generally speaking, and whether
Run where they ain't. That's what I tell the running backs.
Whether they're worth like a top 10 pick? Do you have any thoughts on that kind of topic? You know?
No, I don't. I think that's individualized based on how good the player is. I meant how talented and what impact that he's going to make. His ability to play in all three downs, his ability to catch the football, his ability to create mismatches, and obviously then what the team covets. I think that's the most important.
Mike, you used the term covet earlier, and you just used it again. Relatively speaking, where you're drafting, how many guys are we talking are under that sort of realm?
Well, I think where we're drafting, there's a handful of guys. We're not in the market for a quarterback, so that ought to eliminate anybody that throws the football. But I do think that there is certainly players that we covet at every level. I think that's the thing that we're finding as you go through. And so it's a package. It's a complete package. It's about the player. And it's about the person. And most importantly, I think for me, the vision that we have for them and the impact that they're going to make in the locker room and make in the community.
Mike, one more, please. Joe Milton.
Please stop being so nice.
We're just under 20 minutes. Joe Milton, why trade for him? Why trade him when you guys did?
Well, we felt like his reps were going to be decreased as we worked through the offseason, and we felt like, just like every other decision, that we're going to try to do what's best for the team, and that's the decision that we ultimately made. And so excited to move forward with Drake and Josh, and that's going to be a tough one for me to continue to say over and over, is Drake and Josh. So I appreciate it, guys. Again, I want to thank our scouts, want to thank our personnel department for getting, I think, me brought up to speed in this process, and our coaching staff. So thanks.
You have two Drake and Josh. You got it.
Whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
And now, great moments in history.
Yeah, I think he goes by DR. He was a quarterback at Houston and Miami.
Yeah. Oh boy. Uh-oh, Paul. See, put down the cigarettes, Paul.
Excuse me.
It's not good.
It's really.
I mean, dude.
It's really pretty much gone.
Makes such a good point there.
I don't know why. I haven't.
That's what it is. When I was going on my rant on Saturday,
I haven't complimenting
Paul was
any of his
just
points.
cigarettes.
I haven't complimented any.
It's hard to argue with anything Deuces
We,
said.
we don't know it, but Paul goes home. He's a chain smoker. He's just like one after another.
After the draft,
Can a guy get a light?
Ooh, that value. Safe home, honey.
I'd rather fight than switch.
That's another great moment from
Back here in Patriots Unfiltered, you just heard from Mike Vrabel. He filibusters very well.
Yeah, like
pause.
that
Good use of the
pre-draft
pause.
press conference is one of the more fruitless activities necessary. I mean, everybody does it. Everybody around the league has somebody speak at this time of year, but you can certainly understand the position that whoever is, whether it's a GM or a head coach, is in. Like, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, we have our guy.
Phone's ringing off the hook.
I mean, well, Karen's first question is a good question.
Yeah.
Has anyone shown interest in a move?
Yeah.
Which is one maybe you can answer, even if you want it out there like, oh, yeah, we're getting a lot of interest. Yeah. You could use that as an opportunity to drum up business. But he chose to say that it's a little early for those calls.
But still, don't you think like it's on other teams? Like, shouldn't they absolutely be calling the Patriots just to find out? Like, to find what would it take?
You might want to wait a little bit.
Yeah, and Mike's answer was just not necessarily that it won't. It just maybe he said it's a little early for those conversations yet. But yeah, I think that was a good question. And again, Mike isn't really going to be in a position where he's going to be able to say a whole lot. That's why I think it's one of the more fruitless exercises that we do. But you're right, he filibusters well.
Yep. So that was Mike Vrabel. If you have any comments about that, you can obviously call or email in. 855-PASS-500 is the hotline, or the email is podcast@patriots.com. But one thing I wanted to bring up, it is draft time. Bill Belichick is coming out with a new book, and excerpts are already out, or some of the reviewers have already read it. And in one of his chapters, Mistakes, one of the few that he believes he's ever made is that he passed on Lamar Jackson. You buying that?
No.
No?
I mean, like, that's one of the biggest mistakes?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
But do you believe that he was, if they passed on him, because at the time, wasn't it Josh McDaniels who was high on Lamar Jackson?
That was the story.
Yeah.
That was the narrative, as the kids like to say.
Right. So I'd be interested, maybe off record. Hey, Josh.
Here's
what
my
happened back
feeling
then?
on some of these things. And listen, I take the book at face value for what it is. I'll probably try to read it when it gets made available to the peasants. But it's almost never like, what was your biggest regret passing on? Well, actually, we dodged a bullet in 2017. We were going to draft Mike Dussault. And he turned out to be out of the league, and it's always like, a two-time MVP,
right?
Who and I knew he was good.
Yeah,
I should have taken him.
I was in on it.
Yeah,
was that 18? Was that the year Lamar came out? 18.
Yeah, if you knew he was the pick before they used on Sony Michel.
Yeah, I mean, what would a Brady's reaction have been like at that one? Like, that's to me is
at that point
it would have changed things, right?
But at that point, he's the true successor.
Yeah.
Right? Because Brady was only here for 2 more years.
Right.
18 and 19.
But it seems like just such a direct message. Like Jimmy G in the second round is one thing, but Lamar in the first round, just a few years after you go.
Probably only about 10 picks difference.
Yeah.
Like 32. What was Jimmy G? Like 40?
Yeah.
41? Something like that?
Still, though, just the perception of Lamar.
This is when I lean on you. I come to you one time. You can't come through.
And then
this is the minutia I expect from you.
And then the other, one of the few mistakes he thinks he ever made was
cutting Robbie Gold.
No, well, he said that before. He didn't. I guess he didn't.
Another one, like
That's
it wasn't.
go-to, right?
It wasn't cutting the kicker who couldn't kick. It wasn't cutting a guy who's no longer in the league and you never heard of.
Right.
It was cutting a guy who turned out to be one of the best kickers in football.
Right. Yeah. But he says in the book, and I didn't read it,
so you were right, Mike. It was a big thing.
I hope I'm getting it. But he said that there really was no such thing as the Patriot Way. It was something they made up, and they probably made a lot of money off of it. Wasn't that Scott Pioli that came up with the Patriot Way?
Oh. I don't believe so.
No?
But don't hold me to that.
I don't. Listen.
Because Pioli was very similar when he did the Pats from the Past with Matt and I about the Patriot Way kind of being fictitious.
Listen, no disrespect to our marketing department, but it didn't come from there. It came from the football area. either a player or a coach or Pioli.
I always thought it kind of came from the media.
It might have come from the media, but it did not come from. It did not come from.
But I will say that
marketing
I've
or
heard,
content or anything like that.
I've heard football people several times make comments similar to, no one inside this building has ever referred to the Patriot Way.
Right.
Yeah.
In any regard.
Right.
Bill, I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure Pioli did. Maybe it wasn't on the podcast. It might have just when Matt and I were talking to Scott.
Okay.
But I've heard a lot of people in football really push back that they've never
and we
sort
used
of
to push
accentuated
back too.
the Patriot Way.
We used to push back too. Like,
I think Robert Kraft has.
Yeah. Right.
For me, like, I understand why he wants to distance himself from it, but I see that as such a sign of respect for him and the program that he created, that it had its own personality, that they had to find a name for. You know, right or not right, the perception of this team was that they were doing something special here, and it was the Patriot Way was about having guys step up into roles that, you know, and right or wrong, that's the perception of this team in the dynasty. So to me, hearing the Patriot Way, I get why Bill doesn't want to be put under that name, but I see that as the ultimate sign of respect for what he built here and what this program was.
But I think his intention was like, it was kind of a shot. Like, it was like a marketing.
Yeah, like somebody's making money off of something.
I can tell you, it was not. It came organically either from a player like Brewski, but it did not come from like the marketing people, you know, that come up with the slogans every year.
I've never seen that slogan on a shirt. I've seen "Do Your Job."
Well, once it was out there, they might have adopted it.
Yeah,
but it did not originate from like, you know, a non-organic way.
Yeah,
it either came from, like Paul said, somebody in the media or a player said it.
It's a good question. Somebody's got to get to the bottom of that. Where is the origin of the Patriot Way?
Yeah,
where did it start?
Yeah, I'll let you guys can do that.
You
could put that with
your crap team on that.
Your hoodie database.
Yeah,
you can
that's it. Is
put an addendum.
I'm like that with all this stuff.
I think anytime like a team does really well, like, you know,
the Steel Curtain.
Yeah, like something happens. And
so nicknames are different. I'm here for that.
Yeah.
I'm here for the Steel
Definitely
Curtain, like the Purple People Eaters, the Orange Crush, like
commitment to excellence.
Not as much.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be my
But
hatred for the Raiders, though.
to that because it's describing the program, not a side of the ball.
But like slogans that you're specifically like the New York Stock Exchange, that was fun. Those are fun nicknames,
right? Purple People Eaters,
the Patriot Way, the like do your jobs kind of stuff. And I understand, you know, I'm not criticizing anyone. We all have different jobs to do. Those have never really resonated with me.
I like to do your job.
I thought that was kind of silly.
Really?
But, you know, Bill. You know, I'm probably going to be like made fun of now. Oh, Bill's not here anymore. Like, no, I felt like that at the time. Like, he's a brilliant coach, and he was like, you know, I have this coaching philosophy, Ev. From now on, I just want you to analyze football. I want you to do your job.
No, but
put me in the Hall of Fame.
I'm going to push back on you, Paul. And I go back. I go back to Parcells. Players need to know who they are and their role. I mean, players get in trouble on the field when they go outside of what they've been asked to do, and they try to freelance. And some like Ty Law can get away with it.
I agree with that.
And so I think Bill sees that in those critical moments. He's on the sideline going, just do your job.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that.
I thought that was perfect.
I totally agree with all of that.
Yeah.
But let's not make it out to be this revolutionary philosophy.
Oh, no.
Like every coach that's ever coached says that.
Now,
like, all of a sudden, he happened to get caught, as you said, on the sideline saying, just do your job. Light bulb.
Well, now that's where I will say that our marketing department did adopt that and took it over.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one where
I agree with your your philosophy in like coaching. But you can get in trouble by trying to do too much. Just do what you're supposed to do. Don't worry about what Mike's doing. Just do what Paul's doing, and you'll be fine.
I kind of like taking over that one. I think that was a good one to leverage.
I don't know.
I put "Do Your Job" on a T-shirt, and I got cease and desisted by the NFL circa 2010. That was one of the first ones I popped on there. But
I love hearing these stories about Mike almost being in
getting
prison.
a legal document from. I'm just writing my little blog, you know, my mom's basement, I guess.
I mean, we still have the series on Patriots.com of the behind-the-scenes jobs that happen on football in the stadium. Do your job. I like that one. I don't mind it. I don't think it's silly.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the.
It was big with it is
coin
what it is.
slogans.
Remember that was
I
one
do
of his
like
big
nicknames.
ones? It is
I
what
do
it
like
is.
nicknames.
That was one of his earlier
It is what it
ones.
is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Like, that's unbelievable to me that something as benign as that could take on a life of its own. the
Well,
way
when
it
you
did.
say so few things, you know.
I just wish that we could get like something. Maybe it'll happen once he's truly retired from coaching, but like something that's truly candid and like truly authentic of Bill. Like, you know, I kind of agree with Paul. Like, oh, now you liked Lamar Jackson and regret passing on him. Like, you know, not that there was people calling into shows like this saying that they should draft Lamar Jackson. In
A lot of people
in 2018, right? Like, so I don't know, but I always look at Lamar as an interesting case study because I think if he had come around now instead of back in 2018, like he's the number one overall.
he would have
pick.
been a top pick of the draft.
Yeah,
But
right.
the thing about drafting Lamar Jackson, especially when you have Tom Brady, how are you developing and getting him ready?
Yeah.
You can't. Not in your offense.
Well,
not in
the
practice.
Ravens did it.
Baltimore did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they made a commitment to him right away.
No, they did not.
Yes, they did.
They absolutely did not. They made a commitment to him in year 2.
Okay.
After he replaced
In year
Flacco,
2.
they did nothing to cater to him in year 1.
In year 2,
Flacco was the incumbent. Flacco, I think he's right. You trying to talk to me
he's
about
right.
Joe Flacco?
No, I know he's right. In year 2, they were ready for him.
And then
they committed to him.
But they did nothing to prepare to do that. He fell in their laps. They took him. Flacco ran the very conventional Ravens offense.
You're right.
He had to come in,
I'm not
and then he
arguing.
ran around and made plays as an athlete, and they said, now we need to cater to him.
I'm not arguing with that. But in year 2, they were ready for him. They were ready to make that commitment. That would not have happened if the Patriots
Why?
had... Because they had Tom Brady.
For a year.
2 more years.
No. So the 1 year is the year they did nothing.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 more year that Brady's the quarterback.
And there was
Why
no...
would they not
and
have
there was
said,
no-
Brady's going? They knew he was going.
I don't know if they knew he was going. I don't know about that. That's what I'm... I don't know about that.
This is what I would
They
push
did
back
know that
at. That's
Flack-
the only part that I
they-
found even remotely interesting in any of those excerpts.
They did know Flacco was going. And
No, they didn't.
And anybody who drafted Lamar Jackson had to be ready to make that commitment that we're going to change our offense.
I
Because
think they made
no
a commitment
one had
on the
an
fly.
offense like that at the time.
I think they made the commitment on the fly. I don't think that they were prepared.
that's
for
my
it.
They made the commitment when they drafted him.
I don't
No, I
remember.
don't think
God,
they did.
yes,
Greg
they-
Roman, I'm pretty sure Greg Roman came in the year after.
Yeah, I don't remember the year.
But
that
they
Greg
knew
Roman
that if
came
we
in.
draft this guy, and I give them all the credit in the world. I did it at the time for Harbaugh, and I do it now. They were the only team that had the
I'll take
the gonads.
I'll take your word for it because, as I've said millions of times, the CTE kicks in.
No, I'm
I
telling-
think Greg Roman came in 19. I think they changed their whole offense. I think when they drafted him, there were still people that thought that he might not even be a quarterback.
Yeah, no way.
I do not think that
you
they
don't
committed
draft
to
a
him.
guy in the first round and
They
say,
did
I
not
don't know if
commit-
we're going to use him or not.
You know, Greg
They-
Roman was on the staff.
They knew,
but he was
when they
not
drafted him,
not as the offensive coordinator.
Right.
Okay, so
But
that
they-
was a complete switch.
But they knew when they drafted him, we're going to have to switch our offense
Eventually. Yes.
A lot sooner than eventually.
And they would have been 2 years, just like here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think.
So
any
anyway.
I give them all the credit. I don't think any team had the nerve to do what they did.
I just don't think
they
it was
deserve
that,
credit.
I don't ever think it was ever that big of a change. And I think that was what got overrated about Lamar when he was coming out, was that he wasn't going to be able to throw from the pocket, and he wasn't going to be able to do the things that traditional quarterbacks
Those were the
do.
questions. That's how
But I
remember
disagree.
it.
It was a big change. It was a huge change.
I mean,
I think the read option and everything was a change from what Flacco was running.
Oh,
for
no,
sure.
no. I mean, like what they were doing in Baltimore, sure. But I'm talking about like more like the development of football and where the game was headed and all those. Like, because nowadays all these quarterbacks do
Well,
that.
yeah, but not back then.
But we were he was the first of the not the first, but one of the first in the curve. And I just like if he was in this draft or even last year's draft, like he might be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah,
because
I
now
agree with
everybody
that.
does all
Right.
this.
But this is today. This was
I agree. All the stuff you're saying about Baltimore, I would agree with. They did it. No one else did. They did it. So they do deserve credit for that. My bigger picture thing with the Belichick comment is back to kind of the way Evan was talking. It's not even so much that Lamar Jackson is really good. It's like, let's say Lamar Jackson was Tim Tebow. And he really wanted Tim Tebow. and he regretted taking Sony Michel instead of Tim Tebow at 32. Do you think that would have been the example he used?
Right. It's hindsight. Yeah.
It's hindsight.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like I didn't regret not playing Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl. There's none of like those.
Well, that wasn't in the mistakes. That wasn't a mistake.
He didn't even. Yeah, it's not a mistake. He didn't even mention Malcolm Butler in the book.
Well, what if could you trade Brady in 19 then? If he won the Super Bowl in 18, you got Lamar, and then you just say, we just won a Super Bowl. Tom's stock is pretty high. Let's move him now and just make the switch now to Lamar Jackson.
I think they could have done that. I don't think they ever would have done it. But like it was apparent heading into the 19 season that there was a, I don't know, call it 90% chance that Brady was gone. Mike, you and I were sitting there listening to Tom. I want to say in Detroit, go ask Mr. Kraft.
Yeah.
Or it might have been, it was either Nashville or Detroit, one of those trips.
I believe it was Detroit.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't in Detroit.
You know, go ask Mr. Kraft. Like, the writing was on the wall. Bill didn't want him anymore.
No.
I think Tom had tired of playing for Bill. He deserves blame too.
He said it.
And it was money related too. That's all part of it. All this stuff is
Bill
true.
said in his book,
so
too.
if you take a quarterback in the first round in 18, he's going to be the quarterback within the next 3 years. I don't think there's any problem there in terms of Brady.
But even that, Mike, so Bill says in the book, it was money related.
Yeah.
And it was, but it wasn't all money related. You know, like he just can't admit, maybe I
anything.
He
can never.
Maybe I should have done a few things differently.
He's very clever. He's a very, very bright guy, and I'm not saying that ironically. He's a very smart guy. He has a way of my mistakes, if you really parse it out, aren't really mistakes.
Right.
They're signs that I always knew what I was doing. But I regret this, and that, Fred is here to back me up. There was a time, like in 2008 or so, that his biggest regret, personnel-wise, was allowing Robbie Gould to leave.
Kicker.
Who was the kicker at the time? Adam Vinatieri. Do you think anyone's going to criticize that move? You didn't kick Adam to the curb for Robbie Gould? No. He has a way of saying my mistakes, even my mistakes, are signs of my brilliance.
Completely understandable.
They're all understandable, and they're all other examples of my brilliance.
Right.
That's what he's all about. It's never like, you know what? I came up with this game plan in week 4, and it got absolutely eviscerated.
I blew it.
And I cost our team the game. The players all did their jobs. It was my game plan.
I thought Steven Jackson could win us a game in Miami.
Never.
Right.
He'll tell you that the blocking broke down in that game. That was a great game plan. The blocking broke down.
And we're not. And I'm not saying that Bill isn't brilliant and the best coach, but even the best make mistakes. You know.
But his mistakes are other examples of how good he is.
Yeah.
They're not really mistakes.
I think we probably would all agree that Josh probably really liked Lamar, and you just wonder if
I understood it.
Was Bill
that's how I
high on Lamar and then couldn't really just get there with him, or was he dismissive of Lamar and he had staff that all wanted him, and what was the mistake really?
In his core, Bill's core, he doesn't think that's real football.
Which is so funny to me because it's the beer.
It's right.
Isn't that supposed to be?
It's what your dad ran.
Yeah, right. As a football
It's more like old school football than we have now.
It's
throwing the ball. What are we doing?
They're running counter bash, which they ran.
I'm
going to
be curious to see what they run at North Carolina.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean,
well,
I've never been more curious.
Jordan.
Jordan.
She's running.
She's running the show. Chief of staff.
No, I will be curious to see what kind of offense and what kind of quarterback they have. Is it a true dual threat guy? Because even after, Lamar's, success that takes off, they never really had a guy that could run that. Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi weren't running that.
Nope.
So I wonder
and that's,
what he would do.
Those are the guys that he drafted, let's take Cam out of it because Cam was kind of an afterthought.
Lamar, Mac Jones.
They drafted guys that were not anything close to Lamar. They drafted pocket passers trying to recreate Tom Brady.
And Cam, couldn't throw. Unfortunately, he ran well that year, but he couldn't ever consistently throw. So you never really got that.
But you look at
what Bill would have done.
What Josh did with Cam, and you said, okay, well, if Josh was doing that with Lamar Jackson instead of Cam Newton at that stage of his career, you could see how that offense would have been highly successful with Lamar Jackson.
All right, let's go back to the hotline. Jasper's in Somerville. What's up, Jasper? Jasper.
Wasting away
I guess,
again in
all
effing
right.
Somerville.
Let's go to Patty in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Oh, yeah.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
I'm wondering if in Bill's list of mistakes, he lists going for it on 4th and 13 in the Super Bowl as opposed to attempting a 48-yard field goal.
Yeah,
But
that's a good
I'm not
example,
here-
Patty.
Yeah.
Like that to me would be an example of, one of my biggest regrets, passing up a field goal
Well,
in a field goal game
But in
to
all
go
fairness-
for 4th and 13.
But in all fairness, maybe he still doesn't think that was a mistake.
Oh,
And
I'm
could've-
quite certain he doesn't think it was a
No,
mistake.
and then-
'cause
then
that's my whole point. He doesn't think he's ever
Okay.
made one.
I know, but I would, but I mean, honestly, sincerely, he doesn't believe it's a mistake.
I think that
Yeah.
that kind of ego does not ever think they make a mistake.
Maybe he should have called it second guesses instead of mistakes, and then maybe we'd
Right.
get some more. You know?
Well, it's like you said, Paul. You're not going to hear a concrete
Patty.
coaching decision that cost the team a win, which is probably a lot of them.
And
to
that,
be honest,
that's a great example that
just
Patty
anybody.
brought up. Like the 4th and 2 at Indy, to me, is not. Because I think you could make a really strong argument that
we could have stopped him.
we can get 2 yards and win the game. I'm going to do that. I think a lot of teams do that now. The lunatic in Detroit does it on a weekly basis.
Yeah, even if he
Right?
can't win the game.
Dan Campbell does it all the time. I think you could. I at the time, and I still would say that was a mistake. He should have just punted. But I think you can make a very strong argument for that. I don't think there's a really good argument to go for 4th and 13 when you're in field goal range. 4th and 13 is not a high percentage play. Coaches like that generally try to play the percentages. You got to tell me that he had a better chance of making a 48-yard field goal than converting 4th and 13.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, at the time, was Gostkowski having trouble with the longer kicks?
Again, this is the narrative that
I
comes
know,
out because this
I
is
know.
what happened.
I know.
And, Gostkowski now had the worst pregame warm-up ever.
Right.
And he was scared. He was skittish in the Super Bowl in his rookie year or whatever, second year or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. Maybe he was.
Yeah.
But, I just feel like that's a great example of and I don't think that would come up for him. No. Got to make the play. Brady should have made the throw. That's
Yeah.
the way he'd look at it. You mean to tell me we don't have a guy, Foxborough High School, that can make that throw?
Floyd in Redford, Michigan writes in, Albert Breer said, you don't pass on great for very good to fill a need right now. He also said the Patriots are in no position to draft for 2025. In other words, need now over long term. Do you agree with Albert Breer?
I think it's a nice sentiment. I don't think it necessarily applies to a draft like this.
Correct. I think in theory, I would agree 100% with Breer's statement. I wouldn't pass on Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter to fill the need now.
Yeah.
But I think Evan's going to be right. I think you're going to be deciding between similar players, and you go with the one that fills the biggest need.
Yeah.
And if that's Will Campbell, it's Will Campbell.
That's how you're horizontally stacked.
I tried.
Did you get it?
I tried to. That wasn't what I was looking for. He knew though. He knew. He knew what I was going for, and he didn't. He didn't want
How
to
was
take
the
it.
mood in the press conference there, Ev?
It was
big contingent.
It was interesting. It was
Usually
like
Fred's
it was kind of same people. Like couple people got multiple questions in. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't like as contentious to get a question off as like even I got a question in. Usually I try to.
What was your question? I didn't hear.
I asked him about
That's when you were yelling at the Zamboni guy.
the tiebreakers in terms of if you have guys that are graded similarly on the board, like how do you stack them? How do you grade them? And he got into the vertical and the horizontal.
I caught the tail end. I was I was out yelling at
Who
somebody.
asked about the running backs there at the end?
I believe that was Ben Volen.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
Benny asked about the running back.
Yeah, you got
How
it.
do you value
Yep.
them?
Great question.
So,
Top 10?
Thank you, Ben.
It was a little subdued.
Trying to get out.
I feel
Was my buddy Mike there? I didn't hear a question from Mike Reese.
Yes, he was there.
Oh.
I didn't hear him.
That was
Yeah.
Charity.
Yeah.
Too many mics.
I did hear Mike Giardi
Yeah,
ask
me
a
too.
question
You know,
earlier.
sometimes you get into those press conferences and they kind of pepper the guy a little bit, and it's a little bit more.
Well, some media groups do.
No, I think our media group does it, but I just don't think that this was one of those. This was a little bit more laid back.
And I do think that's I think it's a hard press conference. I think there's a million questions that are really good questions that you're not really going to get answers to because of the position that the guy's in. Like, I can't give away too much here of my line of thought, but
Yep.
Yeah.
I think those are kind of tricky on both sides. Like,
Yeah.
what you're going to ask and
Did,
how he's going to answer.
Did they feed the media today?
Well, the groundbreaking up at Chick-fil-A fed
Oh,
the
they're
meeting.
giving away food there?
Did they bring some food down, or is it all up at the ground?
No, it's all up at the ground. You got to go get it.
So they're trying to get media over there?
Yep. Try to get some.
They'll probably
pub-
work, because wherever there's food, they'll go.
Michael be there after the show, like Wednesdays.
Take a swing
Have
by
the camera guys up there or
Paulie,
something.
take a walk.
Yeah. No,
And the receptionist makes fun of me.
And then Fred will go, if they have a lemonade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have lemon.
Yeah.
They never do.
That was told to us last week was no lunch, but Chick-fil-A up the street is doing the groundbreaking if you all want to go get lunch there.
Oh,
yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Is it still raining out?
No.
No?
No rain?
Maybe a little bit.
I got a
but
baseball game
nothing
tonight.
bad.
Might be able to play a little golf.
Might be a rain out.
Rick writes in, he's in Dallas. Have a draft question, specifically for Evan.
No.
Why wouldn't the Giants draft Ashton Genty? If Cam Ward goes to the Titans and the Browns take Travis Hunter, then, based on expert consensus, there are 2 blue-chip players left, Abdul Carter and Genty. The Giants already have solid defense, including 2 phenomenal edge rushers, and both the GM and coach are in a win-now mode to save their jobs. If they truly are punting on quarterback until next year, then pairing Genty with Malik Neighbors, a serviceable Russell Wilson, and a solid defense would certainly improve their record and set up whatever rookie quarterback they take next year. Makes complete sense to me, but I haven't heard anyone talking about this. Am I completely living in a fantasy world, or is this a plausible draft scenario?
I think that the main reason why people aren't talking about it is because the Giants did this with Saquon Barkley, and they've been down this road before.
Then you go draft him. Like 2 years later.
Yeah, and I don't think that even though it's different regime, different decision makers, it's not a different owner. And I think
I would push back and say they have a terrible defense, not a pretty good defense. And I don't think Kayvon Thibodeau has proven himself as a standout defensive end either.
I would agree with that. But yeah, I think that the main reason is probably some Saquon.
Yeah, well, I mean, watched all the Hard Knocks.
I think that's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
So much of Hard Knocks is them kind of convincing John Mara about why we don't need him, why we should move on, what we should do, and then to turn around 1 year later and then be like, we're going to spend the 4th overall pick on a running
You were
back.
right. You were right.
Hard sell.
You were right, John. I'm going to take this
Right.
guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever rule anything out because I see teams make enormous mistakes all the time. But I just feel like there's not really I don't think that Genty and Abdul Carter are comparable blue chip prospects. I think Carter is much better. But
he's better.
What do I know?
He's better. I would say that right now Genty's sweet spot is in that 6 to 10 range somewhere, whether it's Vegas.
The Raiders are taking him, right? They want the shiny toy.
Most people rule out Jacksonville because they have a nerd running their team now, and most likely the analytics guys are not going to take a running back that high. So most people have ruled Jacksonville out, but Jacksonville is a weird team to me because of that. Like I'm not really sure who they're going to draft. It's kind of weird to kind of project because they could do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary at 5 because they're going based off of a different grading scale than everybody else.
It's going to be bad,
totally new players.
Isn't it?
Yeah, conventional wisdom would say it's Genty, it's Mason Graham.
So how cool would it be for ESPN and NFL Network if the Jaguars trade Trevor Lawrence on draft day?
I don't think that's going to happen, but that'd be cool.
To do what?
I don't know.
Because of analytics.
Yeah, for both.
No,
analytics.
I don't think you're getting a
we got to
boatload,
trade him.
first of all. But then who plays quarterback?
Well, they draft Shedeur Sanders.
Oh man.
Oh baby.
What a tough sell to use.
But
if fan base.
If Shamar Stewart went to Jacksonville, just the
oh wait, I'm sorry, my bad.
The raw but the athletic upside is just off the charts, and I'm sure all of the analytics models love the projection and all that stuff. Like, I could see that over Mason Graham, who when you walk off the bus, you're like, this guy's a top 10 pick in the draft. Like, I just can't see an analytics guy drafting.
You just know we're
drafting him
Mason
or
Graham
drafting
now.
Genty.
Do what
or
the numbers
whatever.
tell you, Evan.
You just put the jinx on us.
Don't watch.
What do the spreadsheets say? There you go.
I'm glad I'm not picked behind him. It'll be kind of like, whoa, what are they going to do?
I could see, I mean, the Jacksonville thing is interesting. But trading. I mean, I'm not ruling out a trade of Trevor Lawrence, but then what do you do? You have to have some kind of plan. Your plan can't be I'm trading Trevor Lawrence to replace him with Shedeur Sanders.
Well, plus they let Mac Jones walk too.
I'm pretty sure.
that even makes it more dire.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure Liam Cohn is there to
fix
Trevor Lawrence and turn him into Baker Mayfield last year, right?
Most interesting Patriots fan of the world, James Pettigrew writes in, going back to Bill's mistakes. I want Bill to tell me how he felt as the Wildcat unfolded. A few times where he might have been overwhelmed.
That's a great
one.
That
was a great one.
James, because I was
I was overwhelmed.
Oh, my gosh, yeah, I bet.
Like, why can't we stop this?
Why?
That Miami game was surreal.
What was it like in the press
It was surreal.
Because
it was like frustrating.
You need an Evan type. Like there was no Evan type to be like, this is the Wildcat guys. Like,
just stop it.
Oh no, everybody called it the Wildcat, but like no one really understood why the Patriots couldn't get in the way.
That's an extra gap.
Well, I mean, who knew it was that simple?
Very good, Mike.
If you remember, and you probably won't because you're not losers like me. They went to Denver in the Tebow era.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened for about a quarter and a half.
Yeah, and they went, I remember.
And then Bill
100%.
went.
Yeah, 3-4,
and that was it.
3-4, and they stopped it. Yep.
And that was it. It ended.
Yep.
But I do still wonder, like, why was it so difficult to adjust to and stop?
With so many veteran players on defense who had, by that point, seen everything, you would think. I mean, the Teddy Bruschi's of the world look like they're like,
I feel like they had problems with mobile dual threat quarterbacks throughout his tenure, and I don't know if the stats necessarily back that up, but just anecdotally it feels like those types of guys always gave them some problems, and I always chalked it up to personnel, like they had heavier linebackers.
But those two games were not examples of that. Like Chad Pennington was not a mobile dual threat quarterback, and Tim Tebow was not a dual threat quarterback. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
He only had one.
He was a no-threat quarterback.
He was a half a threat quarterback. He was a good fullback. He could not throw.
No. But I just looked
you
at
weren't
those
here when
offenses
he
like
was
that.
when he was a Patriot.
I wasn't, but I went to training camp that summer.
Oh
just
my
as a
God!
fan.
You've never ever seen a quarterback throw the ball more poorly than
and
that.
how could it be that bad? Like that's what I always wondered. I'm like, this guy played college football. He won like national.
Yeah, but look at how he threw the ball.
He didn't just play college football. He's arguably one of the 5 best college football players of all time.
Yeah,
and he couldn't throw.
That's what we got to ask Josh.
all heart.
Tebow, what was
All
up
heart.
with that? Like, what did Josh see? I mean, that's another like Josh truth serum. We ever get him in here?
Yeah,
I don't think we should ask Josh.
It was a blown opportunity last year. We had him. We could have asked him anything. Like he was
Tebow, huh?
Tebow?
He was all over me and Mike last year. We could have asked him anything.
All over you.
Al from Wisconsin, back to mistakes. I'm surprised one of his mistakes wasn't bowing to the pressure to get rid of Patricia.
Oh, jeez. That's like his best friend.
That's a really, really good example of what I'm talking about.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Because he would have run it back in 23 with.
He would have if he had no pressure to do anything. He thinks it would have worked.
Oh yeah.
I didn't make a mistake.
Look at the last game of the season. We had our best offensive performance of the year. That's what he would have said. The game in Buffalo, where for a half they looked like a real offense.
Isn't that the game that Rager returned a kick for a touchdown? Am I messing up?
No.
Am I messing up years?
Finale.
I don't believe so.
2 years ago. So you're talking about the Jets game, right? Or no, they lost to the Jets this last year.
No, it was a Bills game in Buffalo, right?
So yeah, I think so.
But it was a different game. It wasn't the game that Rager.
It might have been, but I remember that half. There's a Patricia year in Buffalo. I believe it was the last game of the season, where they actually looked like a
decent
offense.
That was the Rager.
Rhett says his biggest mistake was saying Brady couldn't play anymore. I don't think he ever said that.
And here's where I'm going to be strange. I don't think that was a mistake. I think he said that the guy's in his 40s and at some point he's not going to like. He obviously knew he could still play ball. Like how long? Like I don't think that had a ton to do with his ability.
And he was probably ready for something new, just like Tom was ready for something new.
Yeah, and I don't think that. Look, I've said this a million times. I would have treated it like the big 3 for the Celtics, and I would have let them all get old together and let them go off into the sunset and whatever, and let them call their shot. But I don't think it's wrong to say that, you know what, for the best thing for the football team is to let Brady go and start over again, because whether it's this year or next, he's not going to be able to do this any longer.
Well, and here's the thing, we talk about Parcells getting into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and I'm famous for saying I would not vote for him, but he's getting in. Good for him. But the difference between Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells in that respect is Belichick was in for the long haul. He was thinking 5 years down the road. Parcells every year didn't know if he was going to come back.
found a way to take a shot at Parcells.
No, I'm just saying
Parcells
that.
didn't ship Brady
I'm
out of
actually
town.
trying to compliment Bill Belichick.
I know you are.
And like, as much of a pain in the ass he is to an owner, like having a coach who is thinking down the road is comforting for an owner.
Yeah, but I mean, I just begs the question of why were they so unprepared at the quarterback position after Brady? If he knew he was getting older, if he knew they were having money problems.
That's the mistake.
Well,
the mistake is not having a plan.
Well, the Garoppolo was the plan, and Brady screwed it up.
But that
Okay,
was
so
2
then you
years
had
prior.
4 more years to
You have to
figure
do
it
another
out.
plan.
5
I get
years.
it. I get it. But I think but yeah, we don't know all the stuff that happened after that. But then I think things started to get real contentious between the owner, Brady, and Belichick.
But I'm just talking in the grand scheme of in his largest mistakes, the mistake isn't letting Brady go while he could still play. The mistake is not having a plan.
Yeah.
He traded Garoppolo in 17.
Yep.
It was apparent long before that Brady was going to outlive his original plan from 14.
Right.
You had ample time to figure something out.
Yep.
So, maybe I should take it more at face value going back to the beginning here with Lamar Jackson.
Well,
maybe that's why that's his mistake. That would have been my succession plan part 2.
But here's the thing.
Sorry, 2.0.
But here's the thing. So now
it's all about the draft.
Brady doesn't trust me anymore. And so if I draft this other guy or if I reveal this other plan, I'm going to lose Brady. Right. The owner's going to be against me, and it's going to be a 2 against 1. So now all I can do right now is just suck it up.
Watch it wither on the vine.
And play it out. Let him play it out. And, if the owner forces me to keep him and pay him, that's what I'll have to do. But I'm just going to wait it out at this point. I think there was a lot going on behind the scenes that I'm not saying that Belichick gave up.
Yeah.
But it was like I'm not going to go through that again.
Yeah.
Everybody
was in their own corners and the
right.
lines of demarcation have been set, and I don't like just that he watched it die and didn't try to. I mean, I keep thinking of Joe Milton. Not that Joe Milton would have been the answer this year, but they had nothing when Brady left. Even somebody like Joe Milton, you can imagine the whole fan base being like, "We got Joe Milton."
At least it was something. That was Jarrett Stidham.
Right.
He never let him play.
He was yeah, right.
All right. One more quick call, then we have to wrap it up. Matt's in Mississippi. What's up, Matt?
Hey guys, love to hear you guys. I'm excited for the draft. Just a quick draft question. I know everybody's focused on wide receiver and lineman, and that's very important. Is there a position on our team that people might feel comfortable about, that you might feel a little weary about, that we should address later in the draft?
Yeah, everyone except quarterback.
Safety.
Or maybe not cornerback now, because I feel with Davis and Gonzo, that's become less of a area of need. But other than that, best players.
Yeah, they need a lot.
I wonder how the safety position plays out with Epps coming in, more of a free safety type. Do they want to get back to more traditional roles? I'm not sure what the safety position looks like. You have a lot of guys, mostly strong safety box type guys, ideally. I could see Epps kind of playing, and maybe they move on from Peppers or Duggar, or maybe they all three of them play. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Thanks, Matt.
If you want to go real sneaky, I'd say safety is probably on the top of the list, and obviously less sneaky, but still important. I mean, center is, I think, a really big one at some point. I would assume that they're going to pick a center, at least, draft one at the end of day 3 at the very least. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Garrett Bradbury is a 1-year thing. I don't look at Garrett Bradbury as a long-term answer there.
All right, that's going to be it for this edition of Patriots Unfiltered. We got Catch 22 coming up tomorrow at
noon, yes.
Okay. So they'll continue to talk, and we will see you Thursday. Thanks for listening. Hey, this is Fred. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure that you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube page to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.